Good morning and welcome to the Leadership and Compliance Virtual Conference. I want to give a sincere thank you to all of you for troubleshooting with us through these technology challenges. It's great to be with our BBNC family, albeit 15 minutes late. I'm pleased to open this year's conference and join you virtually from Anchorage, Alaska. Bristol Bay Native Corporation is a business owned by Alutiiq, Yupik, and Athabascan shareholders from across the Bristol Bay region of Alaska. We are proud to acknowledge that our headquarters are located on the ancestral lands of the Dena'ina peoples. I wish to give thanks to the people of this area and offer respect in their homeland. I am honored to serve as this year's conference host, and I'm delighted to spend the next few hours with colleagues, friends, and my corporate family. Please be sure to have your mobile device ready with Meeting Pulse, our conference electronic tool to submit anonymous questions and comments throughout the conference. You can access Meeting Pulse by using the camera function on your phone to scan the QR code that you're seeing right to the side of me now, which will bring you to the Meeting Pulse website. And then once there, you'll enter your unique access code, which is just your first initial last name. Now, I had in my script that please allow us some leeway today as we work through technology challenges, but all of you have already done that, so thank you so much. And of course, if we run into another snag, we'll work through it and ensure that the conference keeps going. BBNC's annual Leadership and Compliance Conference is a signature event. It allows BBNC to deliver key updates, answer important questions, and recognize and express our appreciation to our subsidiary leadership. Our subsidiary operations are the primary source of profits that are used for our shareholder benefits, dividends, and programs. This conference allows us to gather our leaders who set the tone from the top for all our employees. Without further ado, I will turn over our conference to BBNC's President and CEO, Jason Metrokin, and Chair of the BBNC Board of Directors, Russell Nelson.
For BBNC and our family of companies. We appreciate your participation in this virtual conference and hope that you enjoy the content, speakers, and discussions. I want to thank our team who helped design this conference and bring it to you virtually, and offer hope that we are scheduled to be together in person next year in sunny San Diego. I will now turn it over to Russell Nelson, our new chair of the BBNC Board of Directors, who will have the pleasure of introducing the BBNC Board.
Thank you, Jason. I'm pleased that our Board of Directors attends on its annual Leadership and Compliance Conference every year. BBNC's mission and values set it apart from other corporations. Our culture of integrity goes beyond mere words. It involves the everyday actions of our executive and senior leadership. Thank you for being a valued, trusted member of the BBNC corporate family. During our annual meeting in October, we gained a new director, Gerda Cosbrook. Please join me in acknowledging our current Board of Directors: Greta Goto, the Vice Chair, Peter Andrew Jr., Dee Bennis, Joe Chythluk, Deidre Hill, Gerda Cosbrook, Hazel Nelson, Marie Paul, Robin Samuelson, Teal Smith, and Kimberly Williams. Thank you to the BBNC Board of Directors for your commitment to our leadership and for ensuring that BBNC promotes a culture of integrity. I will now invite Director Joe Chythluk to deliver today's invocation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you again today. And Russell, thank you for the introduction that you just gave me. And I think that it's a good practice for all of us to spend a little time talking to the good Lord before we start any business. So as asked, I will be giving invocation. So let's everybody just join me and bow on your heads, and we'll ask the Lord to be with us. Our Heavenly Father in heaven, we thank you for a chance to be together again as a group from Bristol Bay. We thank you for the way that you've led us in our past history, and we know that you'll continue to do so because you've been with us so wonderfully in the past. So we just ask for your presence and guidance as we meet today. And Lord, be with each one of us as board members and our management team and others that work for us to learn something from being together about doing business in the way that you would have us to, with integrity. So we just ask for your guidance and blessing and continue us to lead us and help us as we move ahead throughout this conference so that we can better serve our shareholders in the way that you entrust each one of us to do. So we ask all of these things and lift you up, Lord, as our Lord and Savior. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chairman Russell, Joe, and the entire Board of Directors for your leadership in compliance, ethics, and integrity. With that, I would like to acknowledge that I'm joined by the other members of the BB&C executive team, including Scott Torreson, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Ryan York, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Nancy Shearhorn, Executive Vice President and Chief Development Officer, and our newest addition, Ethan Schutt, Executive Vice President and General Counsel. Prior to joining BB&C in April of 2021, Ethan held the position of Chief Executive Officer of the Alaska Native Resource Development, LLC, a subsidiary of the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. Before joining ANTHC, Ethan held various leadership roles with the Cook Inlet Region, or CIRI, in Anchorage and Tanana Chiefs Conference in Fairbanks. Ethan also served on the Doyon Board of Directors and currently serves on local boards here in Alaska, including the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you, BB&C Board of Directors and the BB&C executive team for your continued support of this event. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker, Jason Matrokin. After serving for 5 years on the BB&C Board of Directors and as Director of Shareholder and Corporate Relations, Jason was named the President and CEO. As a beneficiary of his late grandfather's shares, Jason is the first shareholder descendant of an ANCSA regional corporation to become President and CEO. Jason serves at the pleasure of the Board of Directors and is responsible for working with the board to provide strategic vision and leadership for BB&C. More important than his many accomplishments, Jason is approachable, pragmatic, and kind. He embodies the best qualities of a leader, and I know I echo the sentiments of all of us when I say I am proud to serve an organization under his leadership. I'll now turn it back over to Jason.
Thanks again, Renee. I appreciate that kind introduction. And greetings to everyone virtually, again, here from the BB&C headquarters in Anchorage, Alaska, where it's currently 5 degrees, so I'm fully awake this fine morning. As I think back on my tenure with BB&C, the founders of our company, and the heritage of Bristol Bay, it's been a remarkable ride. The Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act was enacted by Congress in December of 1971, nearly 50 years ago. While this is certainly more than just a stroke of the pen, the United States government set off a game-changing piece of legislation that would forever change the future of Alaska and Alaska Native people. Now, I'm sure we could all agree there's no perfect act of government, and our elected leaders are human after all. But I think that about a newly formed company like BB&C and what we were about to embark on at that time, it's been an incredible ride and how far we've come. We can go to the next slide, please. Now, typically I spend some time describing where BB&C is at strategically and where we see the company heading in the future. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about evolution, the turning of one chapter to the next. The corporation held its first strategic planning session in 1978. And since then, we've set many goals and objectives and have generated numerous strategic documents. In each plan, if done right, the objective should be hard to reach, but attainable. These are also intended to be living documents. And just this past year, during a global pandemic, we extended our plan an additional year to provide time to account for the unknown. Remember, these are plans intended to be a guide towards our future. While we celebrate 50 years in business, we look forward to the next 50. There's no time like the present to envision what we can do after 18 months of economic, social, and political uncertainty, no doubt. That said, as we look back over the past technically 6 years of a 5-year plan, I'm proud to say that we've met most of our stated goals, from doubling our assets and pre-tax earnings, providing shareholder benefits such as increasing dividends, workforce development and educational support, advocating on behalf of our region, responsibly developing and protecting our land base and local resources, and working to develop the Bristol Bay economy. These are significant endeavors, even without a global pandemic to account for. As we look to the future, BB&C's board of directors will be working on the next chapter. Where do we go from here? How do we stay relevant in an ever-changing world? What is the next challenge coming down the road? What can we do better to meet the needs of our stakeholders? These are some of the questions that will require strong will, commitment, discipline, and focus, and we are up for the task. Next slide, please. In these next few slides, I wanted to focus around 3 words that, to me, best describe how I want others to see BB&C and our family of companies: resilient, reputation, and respect. Next slide. It is recorded in history that indigenous Alaska Native peoples date back more than 10,000 years. Our ancestors came to this place over the Bering Land Bridge and up from the south through the current day United States and Canada. Alaska Native people, BB&C shareholders, and our descendants are resilient people. We have been targets of social injustice, economic engineering, and educational assimilation, but yet we survive. We mustn't play the role of victims, but rather learn from our past and reimagine a future. After 50 years of BB&C, I can't say we're perfect or we've done everything right. In fact, I feel like we're just beginning, as if we're still learning how to navigate this grand experiment. Yes, we should take a breath and celebrate our first 50 years, but where do we go from here? With hard work, ethical business practices, a clear understanding of who we are, and of course a plan, we can accomplish anything. Next slide. This brings me to our reputation. In my role, or in our roles, as we travel, or at least we used to travel, along the way I've encountered many people, shareholders, friends, colleagues, elected officials. There are several constants. We love what Bristol Bay Native Corporation stands for. We love your message. And of course, we love fish. Next slide. We're fortunate that BB&C has great people working for us. We're fortunate to have a board of directors that thinks not only about our shareholders, but our employees, our businesses, and our customers. Our brand is real, it's tangible, and it's what's missing in a lot of conversations today. We've worked hard to live up to ourselves. You are a great example of BB&C, and you live a culture of integrity. Now, I'm always uncomfortable bragging about you all, but you make it easy to brag about BB&C. Our intent is to focus on family, diversity, quality, and innovation. To do that as a company that represents 10,000 years of culture and heritage, that's what can set us apart from others. Our collective hard work is an example of doing things right for all the right reasons. And on top of that, we do these things while contributing to the bottom line, which in turn helps to live up to our mission of enriching our native way of life. Next slide. Last but not least, we treat others as we expect to be treated ourselves. Sounds easy, right? Have you read the news lately? What makes us different is reason alone to celebrate. How boring would the world be if we all looked and acted the same? Next slide. Overcoming our differences allows us to be unified, allows us to trust each other, and allows us to be successful in our own right. I respect each and every one of our employees, each and every shareholder, and each and every board member. It doesn't mean we'll always agree on everything, but if we can respect each other, we will get to where we need to be. In a world that seemingly feeds off driving people apart more than bringing them together, we can be a shining example of a unified front. There are plenty of distractions that keep us from our goals and objectives. If we keep our nose to the grindstone and stay focused on who we are and what got us here, we will win the day. We appreciate everything you do to advance the mission, vision, and values of BB&C. Know that we come from a rich yet humble past. We are resilient. We have a great reputation, and we treat everyone with respect. With your help, soon BB&C will roll out the next chapter. And one thing is for certain, the world of tomorrow is not the world of yesterday. We can learn from and respect our past, but we must evolve and adapt to the environments around us. Tomorrow is another day, and 50 years from now, I hope those looking back on today do it with pride and appreciation of everything we celebrate. Thank you for your time. I look forward to engaging more throughout the conference today.
Thank you, Jason. I hope everyone took notes on how each of us can personalize your message about resilience, reputation, and respect. One of my favorite things about being a member of the BB&C corporate family is the ability to hear BB&C's strategic direction and tailor it to my day-to-day responsibilities. Our next speaker is Ryan York. Ryan is the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for BB&C. He has the direct day-to-day responsibility for BB&C's financial functions, including the internal financial controls, tax, treasury, risk management, internal audit, accounting, and financial reporting. He's pretty busy. When I think about my first memories at BB&C, I can recall seeing Ryan and his entire team descending upon the parking lot for team lunches. It's a memory that sticks in my mind and a good reminder that our culture of integrity is built on hard work and meaningful relationships with one another. Ryan, I'll now turn it over to you to provide us with the BB&C financial update.
Excuse me, I was muted there for a second. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, as the case may be, based on where you're at. As always, it's my pleasure to come to the conference each year and present the numbers that we were able to put up in the prior fiscal year, and so far this year. It's the production of profits in the company is outstanding, and it's attributable all to you. I'm going to talk primarily about the most recent quarter that we ended, 9/30/2021, compared to the same quarter end prior year. But before I do that, I would be remiss if I didn't speak a little bit about the FY21 results in the fiscal year that ended March 31. We had a wonderful year, and in the face of incredible obstacles with the pandemic. The theme was one of resiliency. We've already heard that from Jason. The composition of our portfolio of businesses and assets was put to one of the most extreme tests that I can remember, and it performed very, very well, beyond expectations. We had a record year for profit, for EBITDA, and for shareholder dividends. I attribute that performance to our diversification of our holdings, and then but even more so to the leadership ranks within our subsidiaries. Your ability to react quickly to challenges and then pivot to take advantage of opportunities is the real strength behind BB&C's financial success. So we've got the first slide up here. We'll move on to those 9/30 numbers. So a couple of notes about the presentation here. If we could go back one slide, please, to the earnings comparison. Thank you. First of all, again, these are 6 months worth of results, not full year results. It wasn't so long ago, in fact, after I came to BB&C, that this would have been respectable numbers for a full financial year, but this is just 6 months. We've come a long ways. These are GAAP-based numbers, and the dots I have in the middle are comparisons to budget. So I'll speak just a little bit about each of the business lines, and we get down through profit into EBITDA, and we'll speak a little bit more about EBITDA, and I've got a whole slide on that on the next page. So we'll go down through some of the lines. The government service business line had an absolutely phenomenal first half of the year. You see that the number there, $22.5 million. That's up 24% from where they were at this point last year in profitability. An outstanding record and long history of growth in earnings and profitability coming from our government service business line. Construction business line, you can see, is down from last year, although the case isn't necessarily as bad as it looks. We have a significant number of REAs, requests for equitable adjustments, that have not been booked yet, but that we believe are going to come to be, and by the end of the year, the business line still anticipates being back on target for budgeted profitability. Our industrial service business line, $14 million of EBITDA of profit through half the year. That's up 30% from the prior year, and that's only half the story. We'll see another on the next slide when we get to EBITDA, a remarkable number for industrial services. The seafood business line, up this year, 186%. That's related to both the total allowable catch, the amount of fish that we can catch in the Bering Sea is determined by the biologist, and prices are holding strong, and markets opening back up after we lost the Chinese markets, where we sold about a third of the fish into with the trade war that went on. Investment portfolio, 7.4 million. That trails where we were prior year, but the portfolio has performed really well. It's just the total value of the assets we have deployed in the portfolio that we've decreased. So nothing, no problems there. And then natural resources, that's the earnings that we get from our other regional corporations that share based under a formula in ANCSA called 7i. Now let's skip down to the BB&C G&A expense number. We're happy about this one. We are trending well under where we were prior year, and the prior year number was a good number for us. Continue to manage costs at the corporate office and keep those numbers down. Skip down to pre-tax income, almost $48 million compared to 37.4 this point last year. That's 28% increase. Net income, $35.9 million. That's a 28% increase from the same period last year. And then EBITDA, we'll talk more about this on the next slide, $72 million through the halfway point of the year. That's a 17% increase over last year. Let's dive into the EBITDA number just a little bit more on the next slide if we could. So here's a similar presentation, but this time using EBITDA. You recall EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That is our primary metric that we use at BB&C now. The board of directors adopted that some year and a half, 2 years ago, and you'll see it more and more in all of our financial reporting. It's a more accurate and better proxy for cash flow production than GAAP net earnings are tending to be for us, and you'll see why. Most of the business lines track fairly closely. So government services, you see 24.5 million of EBITDA. That was compared to 22.6 million of earnings on the prior slide. Construction compared to 9.7. And then the big difference is in the industrial service line where we have heavy depreciation and amortization. And the earnings on the last slide were 14 million, but you see the EBITDA production here almost, well, over double that at 29.1 million. Tremendous cash flow coming out of that business line when we account for the depreciation and amortization differences. You can see the rest of the business lines performing similar on an EBITDA basis as they were on the earnings basis. And again, 71.7 million through the 6-month mark so far in the year. Let's go to the next slide, please. A little bit about our balance sheet as of 9/30. Overall, the BB&C balance sheet has continued to grow and strengthen with our acquisitions. You'll see growth in many of these lines as we've continued to have profitability and then reinvest those profits back into our businesses. Current assets, a nice increase from 435 million at this point last year to 463 million today. Investments in unconsolidated affiliates, those are primarily our investments in our private equity holdings and our investment portfolio. We continue to deploy more and more capital into that operation. Skipping to property, plant, and equipment, you'll see is actually down, which would seem odd when we're basically making acquisitions. We did something relatively rare at BB&C in the time period we're looking at here, which was a sale of one of our operations, the Peak company that was in the Bristol Bay Industrial business line. We sold a portion of that company, the North Slope heavy assets, the rig moving and ice road production piece of that business. We had a very attractive exit opportunity and took that. But you see the results here in the decrease in the PP&E line. Intangible assets continue to grow. That's the intangibles that come with acquisitions. The goodwill also comes from acquisitions, although we are amortizing the goodwill. It amortizes on a straight line 10-year basis. You see a large variance in the deferred tax asset line. Looking down a little farther, it was actually a deferred tax liability at the 9/30 mark last year. That has to do with a resource sale that generated a fairly large tax loss, not for books, but a tax loss that we then get to use as an asset going forward to offset future taxable income. Current liabilities up about 15% from prior year. That is sort of standard flow for us. Any given day, our accounts payable at BB&C, as you might imagine, gyrate 10, 12, 15, $20 million. Other long-term liabilities fairly consistent. Our long-term debt, we have made a large pay down in the long-term debt line of 53 million for the period that we're looking at. That's 30%. That's primarily at the BB&C parent level, our line of credit we paid. The other portion of the debt is in our seafood operations. Then on the stockholders' equity line, this is just phenomenal. If you don't see many financial statements really look like this, again, as a result of all your hard work and contributions to our efforts. We eclipsed the $700 million mark in this period. We're up to $715 million in stockholders' equity. That's $114 million up from the prior year, 19%. That's after we paid all of the dividends and other shareholder benefits. Still, we're able to grow equity by that amount. In the bottom box are some key capitalization metrics that we watch. First of all, our current ratio, the ratio of current assets to current liabilities, holding strong at that 1.5 mark. We like that to be over 1, so we're well above that. Our long-term debt to equity ratio, 0.2, that's down from 0.3 with the long-term debt payoff I mentioned. Very conservatively leveraged balance sheet at this point. We can certainly tolerate more leverage without too much stress. By policy, the board has capped that number at 0.65. So you can see we have a long ways between here and there. Then our leverage ratio, this is the primary ratio that we manage in our credit agreement with our banks. This is a function of how many times our EBITDA is represented in the long-term debt number. So the credit agreement caps that at 3.5 times. So we can never have more borrowed than 3.5 years of current EBITDA. And you can see we're less than 1 right now. So that gives me great comfort as a CFO, knowing that we'll have no trouble servicing our debt for the near term and in midterm futures. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the questions I get frequently as we're in the acquisition mode is how much dry powder do we have left? And so this box on the left, liquidity, is the way I think about that. As of 9/30, we have $76 million of cash on hand, $55.7 million of marketable securities that we could liquidate if we needed to or desired to, for total liquid assets of about $132 million. Add to that the line of credit availability that we have of another $180 million, and you get to total liquidity of $312 million as of September 30. And of course, it takes cash to run our businesses. We believe that's about $20 million a day in working capital that has to be in the system for payroll and accounts payable and other outflows. So we reduce the number by that, and you get to net liquidity available, or what we have, investable capital today of $292 million. The note there that the line of credit number doesn't include a $75 million accordion on top. That's a portion of the line of credit that we can break into and have access to $75 million more of capital if we desire to do that. On the right, some significant FY22 cash flow events. We're going to pay shareholder dividends of about $27 million. We've completed just one small acquisition so far this year, but there is a full and robust pipeline coming there on the third line. Acquisitions pending, and this is a bit subjective, but I figure 80% probability of closing or better. About $83 million in the pipeline, primarily in industrial services and government service business line. And then this year we have, and by the end of the year, we'll have made about $60 million of new private equity commitments. Those we don't put the money all in up front. Typically, when we make a commitment to a fund, they call the capital down over a period of, let's say, 5 years, and the cash flows start coming back from the life of the fund in, say, years 3 to 7, roughly. So we have an ongoing pipeline of those sorts of private equity investments. So all in all, to recap, corporation is in outstanding financial health, wonderful profitability, increasing the shareholder dividend each year by that 7.5% number. That's our policy. All due to you, all due to everyone out there in the field, all the hard work you put in and all the time and effort. And I thank you every day for that.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan, for that excellent financial update. I now have the pleasure of providing this year's Leadership and Compliance update. And I'm pleased to start with our Compliance and Ethics program. As our corporate family grows, it is imperative that each of our subsidiary business lines defines and promotes its own corporate culture in alignment with the overarching BB&C legacy of resilience, reputation, and respect. The compliance and ethics resources available from the corporate office to our subsidiaries are meant to enhance the creation and maintenance of your industry-tailored and customized compliance and ethics programs. To that end, BB&C will host its third Spotlight on Compliance. Spotlight on Compliance is an opportunity for BB&C corporate and BB&C subsidiary leaders to share the message, theme, and information gained from this conference. It also allows subsidiaries to promote our shared culture of integrity by celebrating employees who exemplify our servant leadership philosophy in their everyday actions and promoting the business line specific expectations for workplace behavior and performance. Many of you are familiar with our updated ethics hotline poster, our code of ethics, and our best practices resource guide. This year, I am excited to share an additional resource, a short video on the importance of personal pride.
We take personal pride in what we do, in our actions, in getting it right. We don't come to work to forget that. We come here to embody it. If you want to cut corners and seek out the bare minimum, this isn't the place for you. Because in our line of work, half-hearted is not an option. Not boxes to check, not just systems, policies, or protocols. It's a mindset that we live and breathe. It's a personal responsibility, no matter what your role. It's a commitment every one of us makes every minute of every workday. Why? It's the standard by which we are judged. It's the pride we take in what we do. We owe our highest possible standards to everyone who depends on our work to do their work. There's no room for error. There's no let it slide this time. Our unwavering commitment lives in our actions and our choices. We're one team. And in this game, nobody succeeds unless everybody succeeds. So we pay attention to the details because our destiny is not written for us. It's written by us. Every single day.
I encourage you to supplement your existing compliance and ethics programs with some or all of the available compliance and ethics resources. Consider hosting your own Spotlight on Compliance to engage, empower, and elevate your employees. Now I'll turn to the leadership update. For the past few years, BB&C has sought direct, candid, and informative feedback from our senior and executive leadership in preparation for this conference. The purpose is twofold. First, BB&C embodies a servant leadership philosophy built on providing quality and valuable services to our shareholders and subsidiaries. Second, BB&C strives for excellence in all that we do. We cannot do that without careful analysis of our existing practices, taking advantage of opportunities to share our strengths, and a sincere desire to improve each and every day. Thank you to everyone who responded to the survey questions. Your responses provide BB&C with valuable information and put us at BB&C Corporate in a position to better serve our subsidiary leadership with best-in-class resources and support. I'll turn now to the first question that we asked our attendees. First, what is your leadership style? Has it changed over the past 12 to 18 months? No surprise here, we had common answers of servant leadership and clear communication. And we also had responses that focused on the importance of leading by example, patience, and being empathetic. I selected one attendee's response to really highlight some of the critical points that we are proud of here at BB&C. This attendee said that he or she was a strategic leader and that they found that methods that encouraged engagement, strengthened communication, and focused on listening really strengthened their workplace experience. While there was little disruption to workflow in the last 12 to 18 months, they found that as a leader, when they increased their frequency and methods of leadership style, they ultimately were in a better position to win. Our next question focused on the hybrid workplace. No surprise here. And how did that change your corporate culture? While we saw that some of us experienced communication challenges, technology difficulties, as we experienced a little earlier today, we also found that we were able to be more productive and flexible. This particular attendee shared that their culture was able to grow, and that when they set clear expectations, remote work was an excellent resource for their employees. But when they didn't set clear expectations or employees weren't motivated, remote work just didn't work. Ultimately, this attendee put the focus on us as leaders to drive expectations and workplace performance by being active in our monitoring, coaching, and mentorship to best achieve results. Moving on to the third question. We asked the question of, when you're building your team, or I'll use Scott's term, building your bench, how do you attract or hire employees? What's your criteria? And of course, we've relied upon job descriptions. Many of you looked at work experience and employee referrals. And yet I was so proud to see that so many of our BB&C leaders on this call shared that character, enthusiasm, and corporate culture and values are at the heart of how we get our bench to be that much deeper. One particular attendee said that you can't be a good leader without strong ethical principles, and that finding people of high character should be just as equally as important as performance. That being a part of a company with a stellar reputation is, of course, one of the best ways to attract, and might I add, retain new employees with those same principles. Our fourth question focused on, do you feel empowered and resourced to complete your job and contribute new ideas to your leadership? I'm so proud to say that the attendees on this call gave a rounding 94% yes, that the folks on this call feel empowered, resourced, and feel heard when they're able to contribute new ideas to their leadership. That really speaks to our culture of integrity, and that it's based in having that clear communication and collaboration at all times. Our fifth and sixth questions were on a scale from 1 to 5. First, asking leadership on this call, do you see career advancement and succession planning as top priorities for you? And we had a median answer of 3.92. When I turned that question around for number 6 and asked the question of, what about your direct reports? Would they rate career advancement and succession planning as top priorities for your company? We had a slight dip to 3.73. And so I think that some of that information serves as the best foreground for us to start our executive fireside chat. The executive team fireside chat is an opportunity for the BB&C executive team to respond to your questions. As leaders of our organization, we not only value your hard work, but we also value your concerns, comments, recommendations, and invaluable insight on the direction of BB&C today and in the future. We welcome your questions by using our electronic conference tool, Meeting Pulse. You can sign on to Meeting Pulse and submit those questions anonymously, and some of you have done so this morning. Thank you for submitting your questions in advance. We may not have time to get all of your questions, but we will certainly put those responses on InfoNet. So why don't we get started, and I will welcome our entire executive team to join me. And I'll start with the first question. So welcome to everyone. We should be able to see all 5 members of our E-team. And our first question submitted was, how does the executive team engage with leaders of Bristol Bay villages? And Jason, maybe this is a good one for you to answer.
Sure, thanks, Renee. Great question. So BB&C engages with our community leaders in a number of ways. Each member of the executive team has their own role, their unique role to play in the organization. We all have our own skills, and we all have our own relationship with communities and community leaders. Some of us might focus more on the economic issues of the region, while others focus more on social issues or infrastructure, or even our local fish and game, for example. I'm fortunate enough to serve in my capacity as CEO for BB&C. I serve on the Bristol Bay Partnership, which is a makeup of other CEOs from the Bristol Bay region, the regional nonprofit, the regional fisheries group or community development organization, as well as the regional hospital and housing authority. We have members who engage with the local workforce development organizations, school districts, and even the tribes. On an annual basis, BB&C provides a Bristol Bay Leadership Forum that happens in December, typically. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID, we had to cancel the Leadership Forum again, but it's an opportunity for several hundred community leaders to come together in one place and learn about issues that are important to the region and to Alaska. And it's a way for BB&C to showcase what's going on in our organization in areas where we have an impact. So we engage in a number of ways, whether it's members of the board in their various roles in the region, our executive team and our senior management team engaging with leaders of the Bristol Bay region on a regular basis. And then, of course, trying to make that connection almost as a liaison, if you will, between Bristol Bay leaders, state of Alaska leaders, and even leaders at the federal level. So I think BB&C has an important role to play, and I hope we play it well.
Great, thanks, Jason. And certainly I invite the executive team members to add anything to Jason's answer, or as we get into the conversation, to supplement accordingly. Maybe I'll move on to the next question, which is, what has BB&C Corporate done in the last year to deploy the servant leadership model? Ryan, I know that this is close to your heart. Perhaps you can start us off with this answer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Renee. Yeah, it is near and close to my heart. This is something that I believe is the secret sauce at BB&C, or at least certainly a part of it. In the last year, we've continued to reinstill and reinforce the notion that BB&C, the parent company, is here to help and support our subsidiaries. We don't have a centralized command and control model at BB&C. I think of it more of an upside down pyramid where BB&C is at the bottom, helping to support all of our businesses. When I talk to my direct reports and our team, I tell them, every one of them, often, that our job is to remove obstacles and roadblocks for our subsidiaries. The business challenges they face day to day with customers and vendors and partners are plenty enough to deal with, and so to the extent that we can help at the BB&C level, that's what we should be doing. We should be serving and leading from the bottom. I tell all my people that we know we're doing it right when you, the subsidiary leadership teams, are calling us and asking us to assist in projects or lend resources that we may have that you don't have access to. But when those phones are ringing and you're engaging us, then we know we're doing it right.
Great. I'll move on to the third question. And so in the interest of time, the third question being, our employees are curious about Bristol Bay and what it means to work for an ANC, Alaska Native Corporation. What is your elevator speech for describing BB&C and its unique corporate model to those unfamiliar with Bristol Bay and ANCSA? And maybe, Scott, you'd be the best person to start us off here. Now, we're not hearing you if you're speaking. I'm not sure if you are.
Renee, it looks like Scott might be having some technical difficulties. Maybe I'll jump in.
Sure. There we go. Okay, I just came off mute. The new normal, right? Coming off mute. Okay, yeah, great question. I've had the privilege over over 3 decades now to be part of the ANC family, if you will. I started many years ago at CIRI and had a great career going there. Loved working with that group of people. And but many of you know that along the way I married a shareholder at BB&C, and so I was always trying to get into the right region. And eventually the opportunity came that I could come join BB&C, and that's been just a terrific time period here. So along that way, I've been able to come to know the native people and culture of both Cook Inlet, right here in the Anchorage area, as well as Bristol Bay, both at, professionally and personally. And I think working with ANCs has allowed me to be involved in so many interesting opportunities in my life. In many ways, they're akin to a small company, small business where you end up wearing a lot of different hats, and that certainly has been the case for me. So I've done everything from financial analysis, which is kind of where I got started, and moved into corporate development, so a lot of acquisition type work, to land development and even risk management, telecommunications. And then when I moved over to BB&C, all the different things that we're involved within our business lines. So just a lot of really interesting things to be able to be involved with. So for me, I think working for an ANC is a great mix of business, which I greatly enjoy, but also mission. And that really helps to give me a strong sense of purpose, which is important to me. And I know many of the folks on this phone, if not everybody. And some of the great things about BB&C specifically are things like, when we're in the boardroom, their UPIC is still spoken. So there's sidebar conversations going on that you don't have any idea what's being said, but it's just really cool to be able to hear that. And you get that occasionally in the office. We've got some, Fran, I'm thinking specifically, and others that are very much into the language of BB&C. So you hear that throughout, and just for me, that's really cool. We started off this meeting with an invocation. To me, that's something that's really special about BB&C. Board meetings start that way. Things like this start that way. Again, that's more of a personal thing for me, but something that I really love about the company. And then the mission of supporting shareholders in Bristol Bay, it's legit. It's not a thing on a brochure or some glossy print thing that helps with our business. That is why we are here. And getting back to that mission and that sense of purpose for me, that's really important. And then finally, and a lot of people have heard me, talk about us as a family, but even though our business interests are vast, I mean, it's incredible, all the things that we do, where we do it, and all under that servant leadership, decentralized approach that Ryan talked about. But even with all of that, we still operate as a family, and we talk a lot about the BB&C family. And I think that's also something that for me is really legit. So that must have taken at least 20 floors worth of talking on that elevator, but that would be what I'd say.
So we'll take from it what we will, but you provided us lots of information to develop individualized elevator speeches. So maybe that's the beauty in it. I'll move on to the next question, and no surprise, we have more than one question related to COVID. So maybe I will send this to Ethan to answer. Is BB&C considering a COVID-19 vaccine mandate?
The issue of whether the corporate is considering a mandate is certainly something that has been considered, but is not on the table in front of us at the moment. I think that in its wisdom, our board has considered all of the potential options around how to address the pandemic, and to date has defaulted that there are state and federal mandates, and our advice to our subsidiaries and our help in supporting our subsidiary leadership has been to follow the law.
Great. And I think that's a response that makes a lot of sense in the context of what we're talking about, Ethan. We've talked about the ability for our subsidiary leaders to make industry-tailored decisions that make sense for them. And I'm proud that BB&C supports the fact that there may be differences between those industries so that our leaders can make decisions related to COVID-19 or otherwise. I'll move on to the next question, which is, what can individual subsidiaries do to help engage BB&C shareholders more? And maybe Jason, you can start with that answer.
Sure. In fact, I was going to do a little show and tell for Scott's question that working for an Alaska Native corporation means you get fish from your board chairman every once in a while. That only took me one floor to ride that elevator, Scott, but I really enjoyed your answer as well. Connecting and engaging with BB&C shareholders is a wonderful opportunity. And again, working for an Alaska Native corporation, it's unique in that our shareholders have a personal, in many cases, an ancestral tie to the land in which BB&C represents, which in and of itself is unique as an Alaska Native corporation, largest private landowner of native lands in Bristol Bay. And our subsidiaries are a great extension of BB&C's mission, vision, values, and our goals and objectives. We have, depending on the time of year and whether we're in the middle of a global pandemic, we have a little over 4,000 employees, and we're in almost every U.S. state. So our connection to shareholders is not only localized, but it's very broad. And I would say through our subsidiaries' regular communications, whether it's social media, quarterly newsletters, your engagement through career fairs, hosting interns, and of course employing shareholders as you may, just know that our shareholders are always paying attention. They're listening to what's going on in our organizations, not only at the corporate level, but in the subsidiary level as well. And an example I think about from time to time is some folks here on the executive team may have been on this trip as well, but we were in the village of New Stuyahok in Bristol Bay on the Nushagak River. This was several years ago. Members of our government services team were out touring some of our communities, really for familiarization and understanding of what it's like to live in a rural Alaska village. One of the local elders walked into our meeting, I think it was at the village council office, and he had on a Vista International Operations shirt with the logo on his shirt. And I believe he won it as a door prize at one of the BB&C events, but he wore this shirt so proudly. He felt like, he's got a connection to the corporation, not just with our Anchorage office or with our board of directors, but also with our subsidiary operations, perhaps operations that he's never visited before. But he made that connection. It was a small gesture of one of our companies to obviously reach out to our shareholder base through some corporate swag, but he wore it with pride, and he really had a lot of pride in the corporation. So there's many ways in which our subsidiaries can engage with our shareholders. It's not just the regular, sort of stagnant interaction that perhaps social media or print material can provide, but it's also the personal engagement. Even if you can't do that in the village of New Stuyahok, there's ways in which BB&C can host that engagement through, like I mentioned, through career fairs and other opportunities and special shareholder venues that we host, largely in the Pacific Northwest, but in other places as well.
Well, great. I want to thank everyone for participating on Meeting Pulse. We have a couple of questions that are coming in, so maybe I'll read a few and direct them to the E-team accordingly. So the first one is, does BB&C have a leadership succession plan, and do the subsidiaries also have succession plans? And this is pretty open-ended, but certainly maybe Scott, Jason, either of you may want to take this one on.
Maybe I'll start, Scott, and then you can follow up from a perhaps more subsidiary perspective.
Sure.
BB&C continually works on ways in which we might envision succession planning throughout the organization. I think a great example of that at the very top of the organization is our recent transition as former chairman Joe Chyfluk has stepped down and continues to serve on the BB&C board, and Russell Nelson, who was previously the vice chair, has stepped into the chairmanship role. We have Greta Goto, who is now the vice chair of BB&C. And so that transition of leadership, and of course, Joe served in the capacity of chairman for many, many years and has done a wonderful job representing BB&C. We now have a new leadership group in place with Russell and Greta. That transition, that succession is something that we're very proud of, and also indicates that BB&C, as I mentioned in my previous strategic planning discussion, is turning to the next chapter and focusing on the future of the corporation. we still have that tight unit of board members that represents the corporation at the highest level. At the executive team level or at the senior management level, we're always looking at ways that we can identify leadership potential within the organization. I'm no longer a spring chicken. I show some of my gray hair proudly as the CEO of the corporation, but I certainly hope that I'm around for many years to come. But we do need to identify others within the organization that show leadership potential and start to prepare them for leadership roles within the organization. It's always a challenge, leadership and succession in ways in which the corporation can foresee its future, and something we'll continually work on both formally and informally at the corporate level. Scott, maybe you can provide some examples at the subsidiary level on how you're focusing on succession planning.
Okay, sorry. Hopefully I haven't been just sitting here. I'm getting a little glitchy on this side, Renee, but just as a follow-up to Jason's discussion there on succession. So yes, there are, my thinking and approach on this has been, maybe to back up. So we have been focused on leadership, and I believe that at this point in time, we have extraordinary leaders throughout our organization, and something I'm really proud of. Something that people talk about, what keeps you up at night, and there's plenty of that kind of stuff. But there's also things that what gives you peace at night, and part of a huge answer for me is the leaders that are out there. So the downside of having really exceptional leaders is that they're hard to replace because they're exceptional. So the approach has been to all of our organizations have been, we've had some consolidation, so there are now larger operations that allows us the ability to build benches. And so I'm a big believer of hiring from within, which means developing and preparing employees to be able to step into these roles. And that's just a term that I use is to build the bench of people, not to identify individual successors until it gets to be time, but to have a number of people that can be successors over time. And that strengthens the organization along the way, helps the leadership to work better and better together. And this has been something that has worked well for us. We actually have 2 successions underway right now, and both of those we expect to have no hiccup in the leadership, and to roll right into the future. And in many ways, these are typically younger people that are coming on. They're going to bring a different perspective for automation, for all of the things that I like to poke fun at myself. I'm now I discovered the term boomer earlier this year, so I'm a boomer, and I do think about things differently than younger generations. And younger leaders can bring in a new breath of life into areas that we didn't even know that how good things could be. But to back up, extraordinary leaders in place, building those benches, being prepared for that day when it happens, and then trying to be in a year or 2 out is helpful, because then we can also transition that succession in, and again, we won't miss a beat. That's the plan.
Yeah. Great. Well, I have a question on acquisitions that has come in from Meeting Polls, and I'll give it to none other than Nancy, our Chief Development Officer. And this one, I'll read this one twice so that we can paraphrase it appropriately. But this attendee said, it appears that $292 million is available for possible acquisitions, and that $144 million is needed for current acquisitions and private equity investments. What is the strategy for the sort of businesses that will be targeted for the approximate $150 million that may still be available for acquisitions? So I'll turn that to you, Nancy.
Wow, what a question. So our growth strategy is really 2-pronged, and one of those is to continue to grow our existing lines of business. Those are companies and lines of business that we know that we're good at, and that we just want to expand on that. But another part of our acquisition strategy is diversification. And we've done that already, as you can see by the 5 lines of business that we have. But in the next year or two, we'll be looking for a new line of business to further diversify the company. And I suspect that some of those available funds will be directed at that. We're already studying a few things, but we're also engaging in strategic discussions with our board and looking forward to getting their guidance as we move into a new line of business.
Great. Well, we have another COVID question, and maybe I'll kick this to both Ethan and Ryan to tag team. The question is, how has the COVID environment affected our business models, meaning more remote working? Are there margins in various business lines? And what is our path forward in this new normal? So maybe, Ethan, you can kick that off.
Sure. So I've interacted with a number of our subsidiary leaders and the executive team here at BB&C corporate office. And I think our overall approach has been to be practical and to support subsidiary leadership in evaluating the business risks that come with this unprecedented and dynamic environment caused by the pandemic, as well as the various state and federal requirements, such as the COVID vaccine requirements for employers. Trying to find somewhere within the spectrum of reasonable responses, that response that serves the business needs of each subsidiary in dealing with their local environment, their contracting officers, the nature of their employee base, whether or not they have key employees or leadership people who are affected by a vaccine mandate, and all of the variety of legal advice that comes from law firms practicing in these areas. So we just tried to support the knowledge base and help our leaders make the best business decisions for their respective businesses.
Yeah. And Ryan, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I can comment a little bit about margins. Overall, the margins in our operating companies have remained very, very strong. There was some initial softness as the pandemic broke out, and we all adjusted to what that looked like. But by and large, most of our businesses were able to pivot and adapt, and margins have been consistent or even better in many cases since the pandemic broke out in 2020.
Great. Well, we have another acquisitions question, so that's coming straight to Nancy. And this one is, as BB&C has utilized acquisitions to grow and expand its footprint, what steps are being taken to manage saturation in the marketplace?
Great question. So I assume by saturation in the marketplace, you're referring to the number of companies that we've either started or acquired in certain business lines, such as government contracting and construction. And we certainly do have a large number of companies now. I heard the other day that it's close to 200. But we remain very diverse, not only geographically, but as well as in the terms and type of services and work that we offer. So while there's some overlap, in those cases, we work with companies to operate cooperatively, and that's gone very well so far. There's also NAICS code limitations, which constrain our companies to stay in their swim lanes. So I don't think it's been a problem, but as I mentioned earlier, a big part of our growth strategy is diversification. And we'll continue to diversify our holdings as we continue our growth, and that should address the saturation question.
Great. I have another question from Meeting Pulse, and I think I'll push this towards Scott. And the question is, what efforts is BB&C making to ensure ANCs continue to enjoy 8A status? So, Scott, maybe you can chat about some of our 8A advocacy efforts.
Sure. there are many, I suppose, things that we're doing. The most of what we are doing right now has to do with really refinement of the program, dealing with different regulations that come out that for folks in the construction industry, especially, that they are fully aware of the bona fide office rule that suddenly changed on us that we had to adapt to. So really more of our, if there's an advocacy part that we're doing these days that has to do with specific topics like that, and trying to make sure that, honestly, that the SBA can sort of keep up with BB&C. We are obviously an aggressive player in this space, but there's a lot of things that we do to try to make sure that we are seen in a positive light. And I would give my probably a shout out to Romina Benz, who is the VP of Government Contracting here at the Operations Department in Anchorage. But she has been, very tied in very closely with the leadership at SBA, and she is a force to be reckoned with, I think, in all of that. But we are providing information about what we do, how the benefits that we provide back to our shareholders, and there's an annual report that goes out that describes all of that. So again, getting back to that legit mission of BB&C, we just get to tell that story to the SBA for them to see what we are doing, in fact, to support that. So there's a lot of things like that are out there. There's other areas that we focus in on for NAICS code management to make sure that that's going to be too deep a topic to get into, but we want to track our primary and secondary NAICS codes to make sure that we can justify when we get maybe a little up against some of the limitations that the SBA can understand the marketing efforts that we're making and things in our primary NAICS code, and keep us eligible in programs, things of that nature.
Okay.
Jason, would you add anything to that with on the more of the national, the DC front?
I would. Thanks, Scott. The question was maybe specific towards the advantages that ANCs can benefit from within the 8A program, but I would broaden the question further to incorporate all the industries in which BB&C plays a role. Whether it's industrial services in our oil and gas and energy sectors, or tourism or seafood, there are regulatory challenges, there's political challenges, there's economic challenges throughout our organizations, and BB&C pays very close attention to all of these environmental issues around us within our subsidiary operations, and even those that we might consider getting into down the road. What I would suggest is that BB&C has a strong relationship with our state officials, our local officials here in Anchorage, as well as our congressional delegation back in Washington, D.C. We have lobbyists that work on our behalf in our state capital in Juneau, as well as Washington, D.C. But as each and every one of you and our subsidiaries have connections to your local leadership, your state leadership, and your various delegations back in our nation's capital, make sure that we're in the know in terms of concerns or things that are coming down the road that we need to be paying attention to. We're constantly having to educate at various federal agencies or our leadership on Capitol Hill. We're always in a constant state of educating what is an Alaska Native Corporation, who is BB&C, what do we represent, including not only our shareholders but our land base. If you think that BB&C should be more engaged with what's going on from a regulatory, economic, or even a political spectrum, although we may put the brakes on a lot of political issues, we understand that there's a political world out there that we have to play a part of in terms of our subsidiary operations. So don't hesitate to engage us. We may not be the appropriate advocacy voice in all conversations, but we want to pay attention to what's going on out there, because ultimately BB&C, our companies, our employees, our shareholders, and our lands and resources should be the beneficiaries of those conversations.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Scott and Jason. And Ryan, you may have something to add here.
Yeah, this is such an important point. I just wanted to quickly add, one of the most important pieces of advocacy we can do with respect to 8A is in the way that we conduct ourselves and carry ourselves. participation in the 8A program is a huge benefit to the corporation. And, for those of us that have been in this game a while, there have been some bad actors over the years, not at BB&C, but in other places. And those issues have given rise to, intense political pressure, and the 8A program and ANCs overall took some black eyes over that. I don't think that happens at BB&C. I think that is not going on here, and we all conduct ourselves with integrity. We don't even get close to the line on some of those contracting issues. We just avoid all of that. And I think that continuing to do that is one of the best things we can do day in and day out for preservation of the 8A program.
Great. I have another question from Meeting Polls, and I think, Jason, you might be best suited to answer this one. The question is, in what ways does BB&C plan to leverage their size and financial position to further support and empower village corporations in the region?
Again, great question. So BB&C, for some of the folks here in the conference may or may not be aware, we have a strong working relationship with the village-based corporations within the Bristol Bay region. If you think about the bigger picture, just a little education moment, if you will, there are 12 distinct regional Alaska Native corporations here in our state, BB&C being one of them. At the village level, we have a very unique relationship, not only land-based, but culturally based with village corporations. So there are 25 distinct village corporations within the Bristol Bay region. I think if my number's accurate, there's about 175 or 177 village-based corporations around the state of Alaska, but in our region, there are 25 distinct village corporations. BB&C, some years ago, decided that we are similar in our construct, similar in our ability to invest and do business on behalf of our shareholders, both at the regional and the village level. Why shouldn't we be working a little more closely together? We are distinct, separate legal entities, but coming from the same place, having, in many cases, the same shareholders who can be shareholders at both the village level and the regional level, why shouldn't we be working more closely together? So we made a concerted effort to reach out to village corporations in Bristol Bay, and not to tell them how to do business or to do business on their behalf, but if there's modeling, if there's examples, if there's opportunities in which village corporations can participate, BB&C can play more of a mentor role to village corporations, especially within the 8A program. But just serving as a resource for our village corporations has been really beneficial in sort of the last decade. And BB&C has partnered in some cases with village corporations. We've mentored some of them, and in many cases, we've just been there for some advice and counsel. How do you set up a proper management function? How do you set up a back office function? How do you invest for a proper return? How do you avoid the pitfalls that maybe BB&C has seen through our own trials and errors of the past? And so that relationship is important, not only from a cultural standpoint, but from a business standpoint. And not every village corporation is going to partner up or to utilize BB&C for some of the advice that we can provide, and that's okay, because we still have that relationship, and hopefully we're going to be there for many years to come should they seek out our
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And it looks like we're closing out on about 45 minutes, so that's a lot of time from our executive team, and I think all of us appreciate it. One question that I think I could push over to Scott is, does BB&C play a role in managing potential conflicts between subsidiary companies that perform similar services?
Oh, well, we have no such conflicts. We get along wonderfully. The answer is yes, for sure, but probably not how people might think about that. In the past, in the beginning, as they say, our business structure was different, leadership was different, and we had what we called swim lanes, and the leaders of individual operations were required to stay in that swim lane, and it was something that was sort of approved for them. And when conflicts arose, I would work with those leaders to try to make a decision on the best way to go. And that worked actually really good for a while, but as the company grew and our operations grew, we began to miss opportunities. and things needed to change. So now the approach in resolving this conflict question is, and to use a fishing analogy, I describe it as more net in the water. That's the approach that we use. And the focus is on what's best for the individual operation, not thinking about who's going to stay in what lane, but how does an individual operation grow and succeed. And there are times when we have multiple nets in the water. In other words, we compete with each other on things, and may the best entity win. And as long as we are getting a profitable contract or project, that is a win for BB&C. So the idea with more net in the water is we increase our catch rate with more net. There are certainly conflicts that can't be managed this way. NAICS code was mentioned by Nancy, and that's a sort of a rare resource that we have to allocate here. Maybe the bonding program would be another one, that something that we need to manage at this level. And the reason we do that uniquely for things like that is because that needs to be sort of determined and optimized, if you will, maybe at the parent level for what's better for the family. But that's how we're doing it now.
Okay, great. And we'll close in on what I think will be our last question, unless we get anything else on meeting polls. And the question is, for future growth, will BB&C be focusing on new acquisitions or the quality of revenue for current business units? So we had our buzzword of acquisitions, so I'll push that back to Nancy.
Great, thank you, Renee. Good question. To answer it, similar to the last one, the answer is both. From the inception, we've had a dual-pronged corporate development strategy, which is to take what we already know and do well and grow that, and then also be looking for new ways to grow and diversify our portfolio. So some of the ways that BB&C can support organic growth would be, maybe helping a new subsidiary get the MBE certification, or having an 8A company to help it have another avenue of opportunities, providing shared services to help reduce overhead and indirect costs. So those are all organic ways we can grow. And then, as I mentioned before, new acquisitions, which either complement our existing lines or create whole new lines to grow and diversify our business. So I expect we will continue to work on this dual-pronged strategy. It's been working, and it solidifies BB&C as a strong company.
Okay, great. Well, I will, since I'm the only one that anyone can hear, everyone else is on live stream, I will thank each of our executive team members for participating in our fireside chat. I believe this is our third year, and it gets more and more fun each year, and we hope to do it in person. So thank you all, and continuing our tradition of having great communication and collaboration be a hallmark aspect of this annual conference. This year's theme is Culture of Integrity, and our keynote presentation entitled How to Retain Our Greatness will be delivered by Ann Rhodes. As Prez, person responsible for extraordinary service, and founder of People Inc., Ann Rhodes provides the inspiration and strategic direction for creating value-centric cultures for clients. Ann has a respected reputation in the industry for her unique approach to creating customer-centric cultures, and is a popular speaker on how to build strong, high-performance organizations. Prior to founding People Inc., Ann served as the Chief People Officer of Southwest Airlines, Prominence Hotel Company, which is home to DoubleTree Hotel, Homewood Suites, Embassy Suites, and the Hampton Inn brands, and served as Executive Vice President for JetBlue Airways. Please welcome back best-selling author, executive leader, motivational speaker, our 2019 and now 2021 keynote, and my friend, Ann Rhodes. So welcome back, Ann.
It's great to be here, Renee. I feel like I'm one of the team members now.
You
I love
are.
your salmon pin. I need a salmon pin. I should have gotten one.
I will be sure. I got this from Chairman Joe several years ago, so we'll get that over to you. And one thing I want to note before you jump into your keynote, Ann, is that you have remained a friend to BBNC and to me personally over the years. It's been fun to ride this ride with you and other great leaders that we can tap into when we think about how we can make our corporate culture the best and how we can keep it the best over time.
I've also been spending time in the last few years telling people about how great you all are ever since I met you the first time. So it's mutual. I've loved spending time with you and learning more and more about BBNC. It's been great.
Oh, wonderful. So I'll turn it over to you for your keynote presentation.
Well, first of all, good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. And I know there's some in each part of the country today. And I love talking to you and bringing you up to date on what's going on, because I think the most important thing that you do and the most important thing that I care about is building and retaining and getting these high performance teams, which today are a huge challenge. I don't know if you all saw the latest data, but the Labor Department put out numbers this last Wednesday, and it said that there are 10 million jobs available and there are 1.7 million people looking for jobs. That's, I may not be a math major, but that says to me that we have a problem, and we're going to have a problem, especially with getting high performing people, those A players that I always talk about. I think it's really important that you all spend time. And today we're going to hear some of the latest data, but we're also going to hear, I want to talk to you about what people are saying they're looking for in a job, because I think it's really important. A number of you described your teams today as outstanding. Your results have been outstanding. Do you know how lucky you are to have come through what we've just come through and describing your results as outstanding? And this is really a great organization. And it's one where not only is to me, your mission is so inspirational. You should use it. And I know it's the corporate mission, but every one of the subs, if I were you, I would use this to recruit people, because I think enhancing our native way of life is one of the most inspirational missions I have truly ever heard. I used it yesterday in a presentation to someone who is trying to think about creating this inspirational mission so that they can recruit people. And I used you all as an example, and they were very excited about it. And they happened to be someone who knows about you before I brought it up. But let's talk a little bit about the research that's come out. And this has come out in the last 2 years since we've been together. One of the things that everyone is talking about now is creating these great employee experiences so that not only do we recruit our players, our A players, but how do we keep them? And one of the things that has been evident to everyone is we keep them by creating and engaging in building these great employee experiences from the day we hire them. In fact, I would make the case that it's even while you're recruiting them. There's a lot of research that talks about high performance organizations are obviously full of great people. And they aren't afraid to say, and a number of your executive team today commented on the word culture. Culture to me is not soft. It's not unmeasurable. High performance models like Apple, like Google, if you look at Zappos, if you look at Southwest Airlines, to be very honest, they have always been about values and about culture, and they want to create these and have created these great employee experiences. And we're going to talk about it a little bit today. I want to go back one slide. Let's see. I think that what has happened to us too is we changed our vocabulary. And if you look at these words, all of a sudden, it seems like they're negative. To me, this is an opportunity for us to think about our culture, to understand that while it may be great, great is a moving target. And if we don't spend time keeping it great, we will lose, and we will not keep those great players. Do you know that one of the Department of Labor statistics that came out about a month ago was that over 40% of the people that we have employed today are literally looking for a job? And that's because of some of the ways they've been treated during this COVID last 18 to 20 months. So while you may have a great team, one of the things I want you to think about is how do you keep them? And how you keep them is you keep them engaged, and you do things like understand that engaged employees will keep you competitive. You have had some great, I love the descriptors this morning. And when you heard that the financial results were, quote, outstanding, you have had an excellent year, that is a very positive environment in which to operate. But one of the things I think you'll find, if you have watched Jim Collins' work, and he wrote a book, From Good to Great, and then he wrote my favorite book, which is Choice to Be Great, Great by Choice. And I think you have chosen to be great by choice, but that is something you have to keep working at. And I would suggest to you that in the next year, the way that you keep that greatness is that you keep that A team in place. And it is not easy. They can love you today, and tomorrow they may be asking for something else. We're going to talk about what they are asking for and what the majority of organizations are doing that are really good organizations. O.C. Tanner made the case, and this just came out in 2020. They looked at like 10,000 employees and different, from boomers, which a couple of you commented on today, to the Gen X, and we're going to talk about that. But one of the things they found out is that great cultures with great employees also get great results. And this didn't just happen. This is something we've known, and you all have known for some time, because you've created those environments and you've created cultures that people want to emulate. One of the things I would tell you about some of the other data coming out from Grant Thornton also says that the ones with great cultures and very, very strong values, that what happened is all of their scores, the KPIs, they have lower turnover because they have higher engagement. Just as an example, for instance, I happen to chair the board of an organization. It's a small company, but during COVID, we had some real challenges when all of a sudden, even though we were essential, deemed essential, all of our teams started working from home instead of coming to the office, and it was difficult. At first, they were all excited that they were home, and then all of a sudden they started saying, well, am I doing well? Even though we communicated, we would have weekly calls, we'd have Zoom calls, you get Zoomitis, right? But what happened was we had to start talking to them individually about their goals, because all of a sudden they weren't sure they were performing, even though we told them they were. We started setting up a very strong structure around KPIs, which are key performance indicators, in case you haven't heard the term. And it was individualized from the receptionist all the way through the CEO. And the board approved the CEO's KPIs. But I will tell you, it totally changed our outcomes. And to date, we haven't lost one single player, which is very exciting and certainly something that we wanted to do, because I will tell you, we have some, just like you alluded to, we have some great players. But I'm going to give you one more time, and I know last time I brought up this puzzle, and today we're going to hear more about it. But I want to make the case that great organizations have great values. And it starts with blueprinting those values. And Renee has confirmed to me that many of you, and I know the corporate values, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but I do believe that as individual subsidiaries, each one of you should create a set of values and behaviors that become part of the DNA of your organization. And I know a number of you have, and today you may hear more about how you can even enhance on that. But there are still many of you who, according to Renee, still have yet to complete that exercise. I'm going to walk you through 3 or 4 slides where it tells you how to do it. And then also we'll offer you an online free product that will walk you through it in more detail, because we don't have time today. But I will tell you, it is really important to create your values, and they should be unique to you. One of the great things about Bristol Bay that I love is that you have this environment where you all there's no command and control. It went out with the military a long time ago, but some organizations don't get it. Command and control doesn't work today. With our workforce, they want to have their own input. They want to run their own organizations, and you all get that. That's a real plus, and it certainly has helped you retain some great players, I'm certain. But one of the things that they do want, and a search firm just came out with this last week, one of the first questions being asked by the professionals that they are actually recruiting and trying to move to another organization is, what is the purpose and what are the values of the organization? And it's a large search firm out in New York, but they said that is one of the first questions that they are being asked. And so I tell you, this isn't a soft, unmeasurable exercise. This is something that everyone needs to do. Salesforce swears, I don't know if you know much about Salesforce, but they're in the Fortune 100, 500 companies. They're number 137. They've had a 30% increase year over year last year. They are literally one of those top organizations, and they're the third in the Fortune list of best places to work. People don't become best places to work because it's a great title to have. People become best places to work because they understand that's how they recruit A players. And if you thought it was bad before and hard to recruit, we haven't seen anything yet. And they don't think it will be over this year. They believe that it will take another year. And so I just want to encourage you, think about how the employee experience, how people experience your organization, your subsidiary, from the minute you recruit them and even while you're recruiting them. I think it's really important. It's not soft. Again, I'm going to show you some numbers. It's not unmeasurable. These are your corporate values. These are really good values. When we said this is a culture of integrity, everyone wants to work with an organization that has high integrity. And every single thing that your leaders have said today reinforces the fact that that's important. They talk about servant leadership, and servant leadership is really about understanding that everyone has value in the organization, and they will contribute if you ask them to and show them how to. But integrity being the first value, and by the way, I think all values are equal, because what a set of values does is it talks about who we are. And values are important, and they're certainly important as we get into talking about specific work groups. They're very important to younger workers. And what they have found during COVID is that a lot of the older, that would include me, of course, we talked about boomers, I think it was Scott, but a lot of the baby boomers are deciding to retire after COVID. And are staying home. And so not just necessarily staying home, but they have retired. And what's important is that if they're leaving the workforce, we have another loss of a great group of workers that we're going to need to replace. And that means we're going to have to recruit younger Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z to work for us. And it's really important we understand what they're looking for, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But one of the first things they ask about, and I will tell you, Stanford, Joel Peterson runs their entrepreneurial institute, and he called me and said, "You will be so excited about this, Ann, because what we have found out is that students coming out with their degrees are asking about the company and how they treat people and what their values are before they're asking about the salary. They know they're going to get a competitive salary. But that, he said, it's probably the first time he's seen that happen. But I want you to be aware, it is important. It's not soft. These values matter. And as a subsidiary, what's wonderful, one of the many things that's wonderful about Bristol Bay is that you get to create as a subsidiary your own values. And you probably already have them. I will tell you, even if you haven't created a set of values, organizations have values. If you want to know what they think your values are, watch the behaviors of the leaders. People understand the values, even watching the behaviors of the leaders. So it's really important that you understand this is really, really critical. And I would suggest that everyone who has not done it, that you look at creating a set of values, and as importantly, behaviors behind those values. Let's talk about, when we started JetBlue, it was really interesting. 22 years ago, we started with a virtual workforce at our reservation center. Today we have 3,500 who for 22 years have been virtual. And yet they have had some of the highest performance numbers in the country. We have about 7% turnover, which is unheard of in this business, in call centers. And we also have won the J.D. Power Award for 13 years in a row on customer service. That doesn't just happen. That was by design. And when I tell you your values, you get to create and design how you as a subsidiary actually live and breathe, and you make them part of your DNA by describing the behaviors. So some of you may have created the values, but what's important for your people is to understand what those mean. And how you understand what those mean is you create these behaviors behind them. It's a critical part of being successful in a values-based organization. And most people forget that, and they forget to define the behaviors. Critical. And I will tell you, it was a 3.5% unemployment rate. We were told we would never be successful. And today, JetBlue has been very successful after 22 years. And we believe, and we credited, I had been on the board until 18 months ago. And I will tell you that we credit our success because of the values and the behaviors. Everyone knows the expectation, whether they're interviewing or whether they're one of our team members. They know the expectation because they look at the values, and there's not one single person of the 21,000 people group, team members, that can't tell you what these values are. And as they enter their computer in the morning, the values go across the screen. They're reminded about them all day, every day, all day. But we believe that our success has been based on a set of values and behaviors. Just to show you some examples, so I love this. This is a tech company, a very young company up in the Northwest. And what they do is they have created a set of values about 5 years ago. And these are the behaviors that represent those values. And they told us, as they have grown, that the way they have recruited is young people. They have a lot of millennials and Gen Z. And what they have done is they use these values and behaviors to recruit. And they have been extremely successful, even during the last 19 months. And so I tell you, there are lots of examples on why this works. This isn't, again, you're going to hear me say this a million times, but this isn't something that you should think about. This is something you ought to try doing. And I will tell you that as leaders, people watch how you behave. And the values are assumed to be associated with your behaviors. My belief is that that collection of behaviors becomes what we've been talking about today. And that is the culture of the organization. You want to have a strong values-based culture, because at the end of the day, it will also drive performance. And you already have a very high performance model, and I would suggest that this will only enhance it. And you do have the corporate values. This is a book that came out literally 2 weeks ago. Because I participated in the writing of it, it is one of those that I just finished reading, and it's a very good book. And it talks about the little things that you do really will create and build trust with your people. And if ever there was a time you needed to do it, it is now. You all talk about what great players you have. Well, you need to re-recruit them every day. And I tell people this is so critical. If they're at home, if you're doing still some virtual, if you are doing if they've come in, or even if they're coming in part-time, one of the things you need to make sure you do is re-recruiting those A players you have. It's not just about recruiting new ones. It's about keeping those that you have that have been this core for you, that have helped you exceed your expectations on performance. So make sure that the little things you do, that you remember to thank those people that have been with you through this whole period of very challenging times. And make sure that you thank them as much as you can every day, all day, is what I say. And I try to do that with my team, which has been virtual for 20 years. But it's hard. So culture is a collection of behaviors of an organization. Some of you will see your pictures in this because it is all about you all. And look at the smiling faces. It's because they enjoy being part of this great organization. Let me talk to you a little bit about the how-to, and then I'll give you access to some software that you can use should you decide to develop this values blueprint. But the values blueprinting team is who you have in the room when you describe these values. It's not just the executive team. They need to be part of it, but you need to have A players from all levels, and you need to make sure that they're people that are well respected in the organization. And creating this values blueprint means you create 5 to 7, but you can actually do fewer if you want to. Southwest has 3 values. They actually have the warrior spirit, they have the golden rule, and they have fun, as you can tell if you've ever flown them. But what's great about that organization is they also all know the values, they also know the expectations, and their leaders are hired for the same values that their employees are hired for. I would tell you that it is critical, though, that you have the right group in the room. And the team should be A players. A players are people who have your competencies and your values. They should be from all levels. They should have varied tenure. They should be diverse in many ways. They should be credible, though, with the rest of the team. And typically, you can have, well, if you have a small company and you have everyone in the room. We've done as many, believe it or not, Texas Tech wanted 200 people in the room, so we did 200. But typical teams are something from 15 to 30 people. But again, it's individualized. It's what you think is right for your organization. And as you heard today from your executive team, this is about you. You get to decide. And it's all about creating this great blueprint that will take you forward. And so I tell leaders, look at where you are, look at what the customers and employees are saying about you now, and then develop this model for going forward. Where do you want to be at the end of the next 3 years? And what do you want to look like? What do you want to feel like for your new employees? It isn't soft, you all. This is so critical with the people that in today's workforce that really get recruited. The A players, I have a CFO that worked for the organization I told you about, who's been called almost once a week with an offer. Every single time she has said no, even to higher salaries, because we have worked with her during COVID and she had some family issues. We made sure that we accommodated those, and she is staying with us, as she said, for a lifetime. I don't know if that's going to be true, but I will tell you, we are very glad to have her. She's off the charts bright, but she has watched how she has been treated during this time. She also always refers to the values. We have values in the organization and behaviors. She loves the model. So anyhow, develop a definition for each value, develop 3 to 5 behaviors, and finalize and communicate the values blueprint. It sounds easy. Get the right people in the room and it will be easy. And by the way, I believe that it takes a day to a day and a half. It does not take any longer. GE took 6 months to do this. We have done it with very large organizations, small organizations, and it never took more than a day and a half max. And many people can do it in a day. If you already have your values, it's easy to sit in a room and come up with the behaviors because you know how your A players behave, and all you do is duplicate those behaviors. Launch a values committee. That's part of the making sure this works part. So what you do after you have the values and the blueprint, you actually make sure that you have people that will keep it alive and well. Depending upon if you have one site, then you can pick those A players from that site. And this is just the how-to, because I know many people wonder, well, how do I do this if I don't have the values? Don't make this rocket science. Get your people in the room and ask them to participate. We just did this for Delta Dental, and Delta Dental said, the CEO who I was with last week, after months of we did this months ago, he said it's the greatest thing in all of his 30 years of working that he thinks he's ever done for a team, because that's all they talk about now. And they already, a month later, have started holding each other accountable for behaving around this set of values. He said he walks the halls and hears people talk about it all the time. I just would tell you, if you haven't done it, it really is worth doing. And the values become the DNA, and they define the employee experience. Really critical that you create this great employee experience. I'm telling you, it is going to be difficult to not only retain, but to recruit great players, even in great organizations, because there's so much competition out there. One of the things after you do that, I contend, and we started talking about it, but we want to get very specific. How do we hire and how do we keep our great players? And what does the data show us? Hiring A players, I will say this, and I have said it for years, is the most critical thing a leader does. It is what will ensure your success. But hiring players today is quite a bit different than it was even 2 years ago. And that's because there are those 10 million jobs, not all professional jobs and not all the jobs that perhaps your people are looking at, but there are 10 million jobs. And as they predict, 1.7 million people are now looking for jobs. That means you have to create this great experience. And you probably have and I saw some of the data that Renee shared on the people inside the organization come from 4 groups. The baby boomers, and we have some of those on the executive team, admittedly. I am a baby boomer. In fact, the thing that's changed the most for me during COVID is I have all white hair now. That comes from being on the people side during this challenging time. But it's baby boomers. They care about the environment too, but they don't talk about it as much. But they do care about working in a great environment. And they care about, especially after COVID, many of them now are looking at, should I retire? Should I walk into retirement instead of run? Should we have a soft retirement? All those types of things you need to discuss and think about, because you all have a number of boomers in your organization, according to the data. Gen X are people between 1965 and 1980. There's certain things they want that they still are a decent size of this organization and many organizations. The ones you hear the most about, of course, are millennials. And there are lots of things that the data shows, and they just did a survey of 5,000 of them. And what they found out, OC Tanner did the survey. You can go to their website and download it free. And what they found out about, they are now becoming some of the leaders in the organization. There is data that shows you that by 2025, they will be between 60 and 70% of the average workforce. So you need to pay attention to what's important to them. What we found out at JetBlue, for example, was that they wanted to have time for their community service. And so once a quarter, we give them time to work in the community. It's really important. And 64% want to make the world a better place. We offer them this opportunity, and the majority of our employees do it, 90-some%. 79% desire a coach or mentor. One of the things they want is someone they can go to. And really, what showed up during COVID was the better mentors and the better coaches, their teams all perform better. And they perform better because they cared about it. And those people that are coaches, which all of us should be as leaders, ended up keeping our teams. 88% seek collaborative work culture. Culture is not a soft word for them. They understand they want to work for a great culture. If you go on Glassdoor, which the search teams are saying that these people that are looking for jobs go on Glassdoor and look what your people are saying about your organization. So I did go on the corporate Glassdoor for Bristol Bay, and you know that the majority, in fact, I think you only had 6 comments and 5 were positive, including one person that you all let go. That told me a lot. First of all, when you have a lot of comments, it's not always a good thing. When you have 6 and 5 are positive, it's fabulous. So let me just say, look at your Glassdoor for your individual subsidiary numbers and look at what people are saying about you. And if you're as positive as Bristol Bay was when I went on it as a corporate office, you're doing a darn good job. 88% want this collaborative work culture, and that has been hard. The last 2 years, a lot of people enjoy, and you probably found that some of the surveys when everyone started working from home, in many organizations, some didn't. When you were considered essential, many of us were not allowed to work at home or didn't work at home. But if you have people working at home and you have people at work a number of days, it is important that you figure a way to collaborate, even through Zoom, which after a while gets a little old, but that's okay. But in the next group, they want work-life integration. It's no longer called work-life balance. They want you to understand what the responsibilities are that they have with their life and somehow to accommodate that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll show you some other numbers on that. 74% in 19, remember the survey was still in the middle of COVID, but they actually have been doing the survey for 2 years. But at that point, 74% wanted more flexibility. I would guarantee you today, it's at least there, and it may even be higher. And I'll show you some of those numbers in a minute. Generation Z, it's a very interesting group. They're born after 1996. They're in their 20s, obviously, mid-20s. And they have all kinds of other ideas, though many are very similar. They believe they're likely to be misunderstood, which I thought was interesting. They have all kinds of social connections. They want to feel connected to the organization. A lot came out about they're being very optimistic when they know what they're contributing. So they don't just want a job description and be told this is what I'm going to be held accountable for. They don't want you to review them once a year. They want you to give them constant feedback. And there's more on this if you want to download. I think it's very interesting data. They want a great workplace culture and need to understand that you all have already created that. And hopefully every subsidiary along with the corporate office have done the same. But you need to look at it and make sure that you keep that great workplace culture. It's not to them something that they aren't going to look at. It's something very critical to them. When you hire someone, though, make sure that when you describe the values and behaviors, that you hire people in this match area. You know, competencies are great, and it's wonderful to hire people that are just extremely competent, and you always want that. But the people, when you think about those people that have not worked out, I'm going to guarantee you that it's not because, for the most part, they didn't have the competencies. It's because they didn't fit. And that fit had a lot to do with behaviors and a lot to do with your values. So think about that, because you're going to be challenged with that, with the lack of people that are available. So the data coming out is saying that it's no longer an employer's market. It is a candidate's market. I'm sure that some of you have been experiencing that. When you look at your organization, 50% are boomers, 40% are Gen X, and 10% are millennials. And I will tell you, the Gen X and the millennials are really, really into making sure, you know, all of us are going to have competitive compensation. I don't think that's an issue today. But the benefits they want are a little bit different than perhaps you've thought about. Many of the benefits aren't necessarily, they want the medical benefits, but a lot of them don't use them as much because they're younger and don't need it. But I will tell you, one of the things the younger, especially females, and I'm hoping we will get the females back to the workforce as we have had them growing in the workforce. I hope that continues, but we may have to accommodate some of them as they try to get childcare to come back if they've been virtual. But the benefits like maternity care, you need to look at, and you need to make sure, because these people are all still childbearing age, the females, you want to make sure that your maternity benefit allows them to have flexibility. They will work, but maybe they have to work from home for a while, for a longer period of time than perhaps you think, but they will still work, but they might like to be home, because remember, a lot of them have had an opportunity now to be home with their little ones, and they enjoyed it. I'm hearing that from all kinds of professional women. And so you need to think about that. So look at your benefit package, make sure that it accommodates today's requests from our people, and start looking at that early on, because it will help you. Career development. We talked today, your executive team talked about succession planning. What people are asking us to allow them to do is to learn different jobs. You know what's been interesting? When they were home during this period of time, they've gone online and they have all kinds of opportunities to virtually take classes, and they've done it. The great players, we've heard from many of them that they decided to look at little different career path, and they started learning while they were home. I had a CFO tell me that the other day, and he's learned a whole new area of finance, and he wants to maybe go work in that area. So talk to people when you do talk to them about where they can go. Talk to them not necessarily about a specific job. And one of your execs mentioned that today. You want to develop people so that they're ready, and maybe you have a group of people that are ready for the opportunity that could present itself the next time, but also allow them to tell you what it is that perhaps would turn them on in terms of other types of education that doesn't look particularly like it fits their present job. Think about it and allow them to talk to you about it. Employees want to work. Again, I will tell you, Glassdoor stellar reputation is one of the top 3 questions today that employees are talking about. Meaningful work. Does the work that they do help the corporation be successful? be sure and be able to answer that to them. A lot of people want proximity to home, which they did not want before. They didn't think about it, but the new data coming out say that that's important to them. Variety of work options, what we talked about before. Is there a way to allow them to work at home for a day or two? It's up to you all. That has to be individualized by the subsidiary in the corporate office. But if there are options, at least be open to talking about it, because you will be hearing people request it more often. And they want to be in a community that's caring. Everything that your executive team talked about today and the things they're doing only reinforces that you have a caring community. Make sure that you talk about that. Give examples to the people you're recruiting on things that you did for your team players. There's so many examples online of great corporations. Southwest, one of the employees lost one of their children to COVID. And what happened was the child was actually a young adult. He was in his 20s, but she did not have, the employee did not have the resources to pay for the burial and all the expenses that come when you lose someone. And the leaders put their own money together to pay for that. And on a continuing basis have given of their time and their sick leave to let her stay home while she recovers and while she, as long as she needs to stay home, they have told her. So there are lots of examples on things that have happened. I know you have examples. Think about those, because stories are important when you're recruiting people. Stories about how you care about some of your team members, really, really important. And think about that, because you all as subsidiaries have great examples. Retention. Let's talk about the 5 actions that most employers are taking according to Willis Towers Watson survey. It's a big survey group. They are known for the Fortune 1000 companies that they always survey, and also others that are smaller. But they just did a recent survey. It came out just a month ago, and it talks about the 5 actions employers are taking to retain employees. They are having a much broader emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. 70% of the employers are doing various things about that, and you can go into the Harvard Business Review articles and see specifically what those are, but they're much of what we've already been talking about. They are 61% are allowing people. Salesforce is a great example, but 61% of the people of the organizations are allowing some flexibility. It is particularly important for people who have to have childcare, but increasing the flex, and I'll give you some examples in a minute. Increasing geographic recruiting. One of the reasons Salesforce went to an option of working remote 100% of the time was they were finding they couldn't recruit the right players near their home office, which is in California. And so they decided that they would allow, one of the options is total remoteness to get the right players with the right competencies. So they have increased their geographic recruiting, and coupled with Workforce Flex, have been able to recruit all around the country for the jobs that they were having difficulty recruiting for. And they said it's been extremely successful. They've only been doing it for 3 months, maybe 3 or 4 months. Focus on education. As I said in a prior slide, people want to make sure that you're developing them. And you're going to have to give them examples of how you've done it for others when you're recruiting them. Again, stories, examples will be really helpful. They want you to understand what's important to them. When I said work-life balance is out, but work-life integration is in, you need to understand what particular employees need, especially those that are already working and you know are your A players. If they come to you and ask you to do something that perhaps you didn't want to do, for instance, we have a CFO in one of our organizations who had a family problem, and our organization's in New Mexico. And so she asked, and we were all on site in 2 different offices. She asked if she could move to Colorado and work from there. We told her we would try it for 6 months. We just weren't used to having our CFO away from the office. She has been very successful. We've now made it permanent. She is outstanding, and she has gone out of her way to deliver, and even, I swear, even higher performance level than she was before, which was outstanding. So just see what you can do. If they ask you to do something, sometimes you have to have a trial. And I know people are reticent sometimes to allow them to have those options, but I'm just telling you, this is a different environment we're in and has been that way. And that's why Salesforce did announce, and they were the first to announce. They announced the different work options. One was in office 1 to 3 days per week. This has become, by the way, a model for others, full-time remote or full office-based. There are a lot of the very young people who Gen X like having friends in the office, and that's their whole social world in many cases. So they found that a number of their new employees right out of college wanted to be in the office and wanted to be around other people that were their peers. But they also said they're changing their work environment. They're replacing a slew of desks with more collaborative space. They're removing many of the hurdles that made it more difficult to be at the office. And again, they're offering a set of options. This is the third best place to work, the best places to work of the Fortune 100. It is, last year they had a 29.1% growth rate when others did not. They are very, very successful, but they have created a great employee experience, and they are totally values-based. In fact, his book, Trailblazers, when it came out about 18 months ago at the start of COVID, he said that years ago, Benioff is the CEO, he said years ago when he was not making money and thought they were not going to survive, he went back to a set of values and behaviors that now are in the DNA, and he credits with their survival. So this isn't something that isn't measurable that I'm suggesting. This is something that has been very successful for all the companies that, at least that I know of, that have been outstandingly successful over the years. They have been built on a set of values, whether it's defined or whether they just see the CEOs living those values. You need to have a set of values. Accountability and rewards is probably changing a little bit because of the way we are now incorporating values into performance management. One of the things that has been very clear, and I brought it up a little earlier in one of the organizations that I've worked with, KPIs have become very important to individuals. They want to know what specific performance indicators are you going to evaluate them on? It is, all the data is showing you that they want individual performance they want individual performance items. So we've gone through with many organizations and started setting it up by individual. So you meet with individual and you as a leader, and you talk about what are going to be the performance indicators that are going to let me know what you accomplished. I will tell you, in one particular organization that it's happened in, we have been thanked since that happened, and I wondered, oh my gosh, this is too much data for some of these young professionals. No, they love it. They know exactly what to do, when it is going to have happen, when they have to deliver on it, and they're thanking us. They are saying that it is outstanding. The board loves it because we showed the board the key players and what the goals are, and then we're keeping track of it on a quarterly basis with the board. And values, remember, the indicators are what you accomplish. The values and behaviors are how you accomplish it and how you deliver on that wonderful mission you have by doing these two things. But performance has never been more important that we outline it for people than when they started staying home. And when you outline it, think about the value of the employees. Juniper Network started this 2 years ago, and they said it's the most highly valued that they have ever seen in terms of their younger players. They now talk to people about where they're going to go, how they're going to get there, and how the company will help you do it. And it's very specific for every player. And they let them know early on. They do not wait a year to tell people how they're doing. Young players do not want you to wait a year. The minute you see they're not performing, they want to know about it. If they aren't doing exactly what you expect, they want to know about it. So at JetBlue, we've actually put in 3, 6, and 12-month reviews, because we want people to know within 90 days, how is it going? How are they doing? And what in fact are the key measures, and how are they performing on those measures? You have heard me say before that we treat people fairly, not equally. I will tell you, coming out of COVID, the demands from people are not equal. There are people who cannot, I keep using this example, but can't get people to come and help them with their children at home. That's going to remain for a while, just because people are still afraid to go to another home and take care of children because of COVID. We found some grandparents or parents who are reluctant to go and help out like they used to, or even some of the caregivers. They are now being paid. Many of them are still getting unemployment. They're being paid per child because there are these supplements coming through December, I believe. So for a while, we're still going to have issues, but try to figure out what it will take to keep your people happy. It is more individual treatment than it probably has ever been, but I tell you, it's really worth it. And you will really hit a home run when you keep all those A players. And I know if anyone can do it, y'all can do it. Customer branding. I will tell you, when you do the values, they become part of the brand. Juniper Network, when they went through this exercise, and a couple years ago went through the exercise of defining the values and behaviors, they called it the Juniper Way. It's now in all their advertising. They use it to strategize and build the strategic plan every year for their business. And they said that they have never been more successful when they figured out that they had to inside build this plan and these values and behaviors so that the customer even knew the expectation when they interacted. And it didn't matter whether they were B2B or B2C. What you need to do is you need to understand that by defining the values and behaviors, you're defining the customer expectation. And it does work. You're not only defining it for your employees first, but you're defining it and branding the organization. It's about branding. I always say that values and behaviors define the brand. These organizations, Workday, you may know about them. They're a very successful tech company in California, in Silicon Valley. They started doing this when they started their company. They have been extremely successful, went public a few years ago, and we use them in a number of companies. Zappos, you all know, probably, and they have used their values and their branding since Tony Hsieh, bless his heart, took over the organization years ago. It's really part of their DNA. Children's Health in Dallas, Texas turned around the organization when they started branding the organization with a set of values. Redfin went public 2 years ago. They started this when they only had 40 employees. Today they have hundreds of employees, but they went through this exercise of defining their values and behaviors. And the CEO called to tell me that he believes they were successful going public because that set of values and the behaviors have become part of their DNA. Community Coffee is a very successful coffee company out of the South. They are now the Walmart and the Southwest Coffee Company, and they have been successful ever since they've defined, he swears, since they've defined their values. But I will tell you that the organizations that have done it have been very successful because they now live those values, and it is part of the customer expectation, internal customers and external. Last but not least, I would always tell you, it is about the numbers. Today you heard how extremely successful you all have been. And to continue being successful, I would just tell you, you also need a dashboard. You heard the numbers today around ROI, and you heard the numbers around EBITDA. You need to also hear the numbers about how successful have you been as an organization around culture. What are the employee experience metrics you want to use? What are the customer experience metrics? And how do you update these just like you do your financial model? Talk about turnover because it is going to become critical. I'm sure you already watch those numbers, but watch them and see if perhaps defining the values and behaviors don't even give you another and a better number going forward. I just tell you, this isn't something that I say because I haven't seen the experience. Over 60 some companies that we have worked with in our past have done it this way, and there's not one that hasn't been more successful successful when they did it, and they started living those values and those behaviors. You all already get it. It's not like working with an organization that doesn't get it. It's just keeping that greatness about you. And it's about building this culture around integrity and all the things that you value and have always valued. The day people start with you, it is critically important that they see the culture metrics like they see all of your other metrics. We believe in using the numbers from the day people start. We honestly think that it impacts their performance. I have a niece who graduated from college, the top of her class, 6 months ago. She went to work for an organization that had the worst onboarding I've ever even heard about. They didn't tell her the numbers. They didn't tell her the mission. They didn't give her values or behaviors, but she left. She had so many offers. She actually took a second offer, which I did not suggest, but she left her. She gave notice yesterday and is taking one of the other offers. But this time she investigated the values. She investigated their mission. And I will tell you that she is so happy. She's like a different person. And that is not uncommon today. There are a number of young people who are turning over in jobs very quickly because they get on board and see that it isn't what they thought. And they aren't hesitating because there's so many offers out there. So this isn't soft, y'all. This isn't something that really you shouldn't think about doing. And it would be so much fun next year when it's your in-person conference to have you all come with all your set of values, to have some competition here. The values, the behaviors, and give the story about how you did it. Show some pictures. Tell us how you did it and how it's been successful, because I know it'll be successful. So why don't we have a contest with all of you who have either, I know you have your corporate values, and I know some of you in the subsidiaries have them, but let's take those that you have already and let's add the rest of the subsidiaries. Let's have you all come with your values and behaviors next year and tell us how it's impacted not only how you retained your great players, but how you recruited more great players. It's just a fun challenge. I think it'd be great for you all to come. And if you need more additional information, we have just tons of it. I will give it to you. Just let Renee know. We will send you all kinds of other information and really specific instructions, if you would like, around how you really do this and how you make it easy for yourselves and how you get the right outcomes. I want to see you all have these great employee environments that I know you already have, but that have stayed great through some very tough competitive situations where people love what they do because the experience is so great once they come to work for you. Herb used to say, he was one of my heroes, and we'll go down. He was the CEO of Southwest. And he said, if you're crazy enough to do what you love for a living, you're bound to create a life that matters. And you do that for every single person that works for you. You have been a great leader, and that's called servant leadership. He was the model for servant leadership. And I can give you story after story. He had fun doing it. He had great outcomes. They still have some of the lowest turnover in the industry, and they've never paid the highest amount. But it's because they've created these great work environments. And I will tell you, you can all do it. And I know you will. And next year, I can't wait to see those shared values and the great results from having created those values and behaviors. Does anyone have any questions? Renee?
Yeah, thank you, Anne. And of no surprise, we have questions coming in on Meeting Pulse, and I invite for the next maybe 10 or so minutes, if folks have questions, to please use Meeting Pulse to submit them. But let me fire off the first one to you. First question is, can you please expand on the difference between work-life integration and work-life balance? What are the critical differences, Anne?
So we used to say work-life balance was, okay, if you have an event right after work, you can go, we won't keep you later, right? I mean, how simple is that, right? But we all work, the great players get the project done, and many times that isn't 8 to 5, it's 8 to 8 or it's 6 to whatever. And I've always thought it was about results. So the players that we have that are about results have forever always stayed and done whatever it took to get that done. And many times we would be accused because we always worked typically with probably fewer people because we weren't growing businesses than we needed. We couldn't get enough even before COVID. And so we wouldn't always pay attention to how often they had to give something up that was important to them and their family. I know you've done it, Renee, probably many times. I have done it many times through my long history of work. And we didn't have that balance. And now people are coming to us. As the CFO came to us in that one organization and said, I badly need to live in Colorado to help my mother. And, before we would have said, well, you can't do that, go when you have a break. And now we say, okay, go do it because we know that you'll be great. And that work-life balance means sometimes it may not be what we envisioned. Maybe we wanted everybody sitting in their office all day. And sometimes also they were on volunteer. We found in New York at JetBlue that a lot of our people wanted at least a day a quarter. And they said, well, we'll take vacation, but we need to volunteer in our communities. That's the integration. So we now let them do that. And we actually pay them for that day because we wanted that integration, community and work. There are lots of things that are going to come up that have not come up before. And I'm sure every leader has experienced that already, that people are asking for special time to go do things because now they're used to being home with their children. I had someone ask the other day to go and she wanted to meet with the teachers and try to change what's being taught in the school. And she said, it might take me the whole day. I need the day off. So we gave her the day off. But I mean, everyone has different issues. All I'm saying is listen. And if you can accommodate it because you're going to get it. You're probably going to get it more than you've gotten it in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think about one of our attendees who wrote that we need clear expectations, right? So if the clear expectation is to get the job done, then maybe it's immaterial if it was, at this particular time or that particular time. We're talking to leaders here. All of us are pretty much exempt employees. But hey, I'll get it done, but I may need to integrate these certain things in my life to make me a happier, more well-rounded employee. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
I counseled, speaking to you, one counsel for an organization called me the other day and she said, we have management meetings. I've just been promoted to the executive team. We have management meetings at 8:00 every Monday morning. I may have told you this story, Renee. And she said, I can't make it. I'm a single mom and I have to drop the kids at school at 8. And she said, I don't know whether to tell them or not because I'm afraid then just being promoted. That I said, go tell them and ask if they can either update you later or if they can change the time. Guess what they did? Change the time.
Yeah. No, I think, and that's a testament to that organization. And I think about the leaders on this call, and I think they would do all of those things to accommodate workers. I have another question for you that came through on Meeting Pulse, Anne. And this person says, can Anne give some examples of common cultural dashboard metrics? How do you best track those qualitative metrics? So, I'll add a little bit to this. Oftentimes we talk about culture, values, mission. I think that you did a great job of saying these are not soft, they're important, they matter, and they can affect the bottom line. But sometimes we struggle with trying to figure out a way to capture that in a hard way, even though it was traditionally always thought of as a soft skill. So any thoughts there?
So something that you better start watching is first turnover, which is a dashboard number that if as a leader, I would ask every one of my leaders to give me that answer and also the reason for the turnover. The dashboard, and then that will start indicating to you if there is an issue because you'll see a number of people leaving for the same reason. So you definitely need to watch turnover and why. And the other thing I do is I take the customer's feedback and look to see how it relates to our employees and whether or not we're getting the right behavior. So customer feedback like Net Promoter Score, we use a lot. And we try to compare on the Net Promoter Score, not to people in our industry, but to the best of the best. So let me just give you an example. In the airline industry, there are a lot of airlines you wouldn't want to compare to. So instead of comparing to Net Promoter Score to other airlines, we compare to Apple. They have some of the best Net Promoter Scores, or Zappos. So a Net Promoter Score from a customer perspective also talks to the culture, because it talks to how people are being treated, what the experience of the customer is, what turnover, why are you having the turnover, how many people took advantage of classes you offered, and what did you offer? How many people were given performance reviews on time, and what's the feedback? We also get feedback on performance reviews. How many of your leaders sat down the first quarter, someone was with you and talked about what they're seeing in terms of their performance? We keep track of that. We keep track of the percentage of performance reviews and feedback, we call it conversations, that are within the first 90 days from a leader.
Yeah. And I think one point in is so many of us are beyond our 90 days. So those things were at the forefront. And then as we get busier and busier and busier, those items can slip. So maybe as we kind of close out our Q&A, you can give some tips to our leaders who are extremely busy. They're aspirational. They're trying to do so much all at the same time. What are the 2 or 3 things that they can take away that they can do right now in their workplace to improve culture?
The first thing you can do is re-recruit and do some walking around, because many of you probably are back in office. Renee, didn't you say that?
Yes, depends on the business.
On the business. If you're in the office, do some walking around and talking to people individually. We've all been on Zoom calls with the whole team, but how many times have you called someone and individually asked, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do for you? Our leaders are now calling, because we have both the same two. We have, just like you, we have some people still virtual, we have hybrid models, and we also have in-office. So if you're in the office, start walking around. What is important to you is on your calendar and what you spend money on, right? Your checkbook. And today it's not checkbook, it's online. But I will tell you, put it on your calendar. So we have leaders putting the first half hour, they are there walking around, or the last half hour, because it's easier to do at the beginning or the end of the day. But it has to be on their calendar. And we tell them to do it, and I do it on my calendar because my team's virtual and has been for 20 years. So I have it in my calendar to call each one of them once a week to talk about what can we do and how is everything going. But it has to be in my calendar. And I would tell you, for leaders, watch your calendar, see what's important to you, because what's important to you is what you're scheduling. So first thing, look at your calendar and put things about your employees on there, just like you need to do. I know you're busy. Everyone's busy, but the most important thing you do next year, this year, next 12 months, is keep those A players. Retention is critical, and also going forward, recruiting the right players. Yeah. And be sure to talk about your values.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Anne, for joining us again. We always learn so much from your keynote presentations, and we've been lucky enough to have you twice. So I, just on behalf of Bristol Bay Native Corporation, thank you for your time today. And we'll move into our next part of the presentation, which is the Leadership and Compliance Awards. BB&C has a long tradition of valuing people over profits. In honor of our subsidiaries and their continued excellence, BB&C awards 4 Leadership and Compliance Awards to celebrate the intersection of compliance, ethics, and excellence in the workplace. Here to serve as our awards MC is Scott Torreson. Scott works closely with our subsidiary leaders to ensure appropriate operational controls, processes, and procedures are in place to effectively grow subsidiary businesses. Scott is inquisitive and challenges each of us to run faster, dream bigger, and achieve more. I'll now turn it over to Scott to kick off this year's Leadership and Compliance Awards.
Great. Well, thank you, Renee. It's my great honor once again to kick off the Leadership Awards for 2021. This is our opportunity to honor individuals and operations for their excellence in character, ethics, integrity, and safety. Leadership is in these areas is the key to our success throughout the BB&C family as we work together to achieve our united mission by holding true to our values and a culture of integrity. We received so many nominations this year, and it was actually quite difficult for us to limit the awards to only 2 operations and 2 individuals. Very difficult, actually. The fact is that we have many extraordinary examples of excellence throughout the BBNC family, and so many deserving of recognition. So we will be reading through the list of nominees for each reward, and whether you receive a reward, an award or not, just being nominated to this list, for me, it's a resounding compliment of your personal and collective achievements. So keep that in mind as as the lists are read, and we will be providing awards continuing with our tradition of high character leadership, ethical leadership, emerging leader, and culture of safety. So high moral character, ethical leadership, and personal integrity are requirements for every leader at Bristol Bay. Very proud, as I've been saying through this presentation, and others have commented, we're very proud of the leaders and companies who are represented on this call, and especially those who will be acknowledged today, recognizing their hard work, commitment to excellence, and their ethical decision making. Today's awardees will receive a unique piece of art created by one of our BBNC shareholders, David John. Now I'm going to have to get into my Yupik mindset here. David John Ngayak. He goes by DJ, and his roots are in the villages of Naknek and Tununguk. Hopefully I said that right. So in the Yupik culture, the owl is seen as a helper, providing guidance or provision to other animals. And in the same manner, our culture of integrity is built on our desire to serve one another, our employees, and the Bristol Bay region. I would like to invite the executive team back into the program for the 2021 Leadership Awards. Please join me in welcoming Jason Matrokin as he presents this year's High Character Leadership Award.
Great, thanks, Scott. BBNC embraces a servant leadership philosophy and believes that good leaders are first good servants. The High Character Leadership Award is given to an employee who exemplifies the servant leadership philosophy and principles. A servant leader leads by example, is accountable to and exceeds the expectations of their corporate family, business partners, and customers, supports and adequately resources their employees by providing ample growth and development opportunities, and dedicates their time, effort, and attention to both work and community endeavors. A high character leader also demonstrates a commitment to creating and maintaining a corporate culture of compliance, ethics, and integrity where their employees continuously strive for excellence. This year, we received nominations for leaders across the BBNC family of companies. While there is one winner, I want to acknowledge the following people who received nominations from their peers for this award: Adam Kelly, Allison Cullen, Angela Carino, Basil Skelton, Beth Poizon, Darren Malosnik, Dennis Hopkins, Donnie Allen, Duncan Morrison, Ed Pacelli, Everett Anderson, Icy Lee, Christy West, Larry Peel, Mark Nelson, Patrick Patterson, Renee Wardlaw, Rick Miles, Romina Bentz, Steve Donahue, Tabitha Navarez, Tom Sheard, and Yvonne Huber. It's a great list of nominees for this award. I join your colleagues in acknowledging each of you for your high character leadership. The 4th Annual High Character Leadership Award is presented to, and I have an envelope, Travis Woods. Since becoming president and CEO of Bristol Industries in 2013, Travis has demonstrated a strong commitment to Bristol's mission, clients, shareholders, and the safety and well-being of Bristol's employees. During the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, Travis prioritized the safety of his employees and the execution of critical client projects. He established clear expectations for his senior managers and empowered them to make decisions based on the specific needs of their offices and job sites across the country. Travis was quick to support flexible and remote work for employees and provided monetary support to frontline staff who were required to be in person at Bristol's job sites to continue their essential work for clients. He developed the company's values, the 3 T's: teamwork, trust, and truth, to inspire and guide employee day-to-day behaviors while still providing flexibility in how each employee embodies these qualities. He values uniqueness in people on his team. Travis uses his own actions and business decisions to model the behavior he expects from his staff, including celebrating success as a team, addressing mistakes consistently and honestly, and demonstrating fiscal responsibility when traveling for work. His 26-year tenure with the Bristol Alliance of Companies is a testament to his connection to the larger mission of supporting the native culture, land, and people of the Bristol Bay region, as well as the value he places on building lasting relationships with colleagues, parent companies, clients, shareholders, and communities where Bristol works. He frequently articulates his vision for the future of Bristol with a simple statement: I want employees to love their job as much as I do. It's this inclusive and employee-focused leadership style that has guided his investments in our employees and the work they do, including a comprehensive compensation program, job-specific training, and improved systems and software for HR and IT so employees can be more efficient and effective at their jobs. Please join me in awarding Travis Woods with the 2021 Leadership and Compliance Conference High Character Leadership Award. Congratulations, Travis. Would you like to share a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I'm honored and humbled to accept this award on behalf of the 300 plus Bristol Alliance Company employees. I'm grateful to the board and the executive team for recognizing Bristol. I know it's an individual award, but I don't see it as that. It is a team award. I'm very grateful to lead, I think, the best team of folks that BBNC has. 8 years ago, we began a culture shift by making employees the focal point. Our culture is defined and driven by our employees. Everyone has an impact on our success, and every employee has a voice and is heard. We hold each other accountable. We've had several successful employee-led initiatives such as mission statement, leadership training program, job-specific training, infrastructure improvements. All of these are an investment in our employees. We have lots of work ahead of us. We'll get there because everyone is doing their part. As I was told about this award, I was also told about another Bristol employee being recognized today. I was definitely more excited to hear that news, and this employee is one of the many reasons for positive changes occurring at Bristol through their strong leadership and never wavering commitment to our success. In closing, thanks again, and I truly love my job and the people that I work for and with. And thank you again. It's definitely an honor.
Congratulations, Travis. That is well deserved. I remember when I joined BBNC some 8 years ago, Travis had just taken the helm and had an uphill challenge, and it's great to see him having turned the Bristol group of companies around from where it was at that time into a very profitable group of our construction companies. Thanks. Next up is the Ethical Leadership Award. That award is given to a subsidiary company who demonstrates a strong commitment to ethics and goes above and beyond to embody BBNC's mission of enriching our native way of life. A great BBNC leader considers the prosperity and well-being of employees, of BBNC shareholders, and empowers others to embrace the rich history of the Alaska Native people. I'm proud to share that we received nominations from every single business line. I want to acknowledge the following subsidiaries who received nominations for the award: the Bristol Alliance of Companies, Bristol Bay Shared Services, Bristol Environmental Solutions, Bristol Industries, Bristol Wave, the CCI Alliance, CCI Mechanical, the Eagle Group, the Government Services Group, Kakivik Asset Management, our entire team at Mission Lodge, Spec Pro Professional Services, and Tech Pro Support Services. This year's awardee is, and I have an envelope, the Country Music Entertainer of the Year is, wrong show, the SES Group. Congratulations. Since its inception as STEP to its present day name of SES, the SES leadership team has placed a focus on contributing to the well-being of its employees, customers, and shareholders while ensuring that the history of the Alaska Native people are an integral part of their operations. The SES Group recently updated its mission statements to ensure it reflects its corporate culture and purpose of our now 14 operating companies and approximately 530 employees. The revised mission statement also aligns with SES's core values of LEADS, an acronym for leadership, excellence, accountability, and dedication and safety. SES is dedicated to ensuring it provides for a sustainable future and a way of life for its employees, its clients, and BB&C shareholders. The SES Group's prioritized a family corporate culture. Over the last 12 months, in the midst of the pandemic, the SES Group leadership identified fun and exciting ways to provide a family atmosphere while maintaining adequate safety protocols. The SES 17 Days of Christmas employee gift giveaway, outdoor ice cream socials during the summer, participation in local charity events, and office-wide intercom bingo are just a few of the ways that SES maintains its corporate culture. As is the reality of the workplace, SES saw an influx of retirements of longtime SES employees. SES Group President and CEO Basil Skelton saw the retirement of great leaders as an opportunity to develop and implement a multiple-level corporate succession plan to ensure the SES Group's success and establish the next generation of SES leaders. Using a combination of development of internal talent and strategic recruitment of new hires, Basil put together a team of industry leaders dedicated to the long-term success of the SES Group and the BB&C corporate family. Please join me in awarding the SES Group with the 2021 Leadership and Compliance Conference Ethical Leadership Award. Basil Skelton, President and CEO of the SES Group, and Ed Pacelli, COO of the SES Group, will share a few words with us. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ryan. On behalf of the over 530 people that work for us, Ed and I want to thank the BB&C executive team and BB&C Board of Directors for this Ethical Leadership Award. Leadership starts at the top of any organization, and the ethical leadership model that BB&C fosters has certainly inspired and supported the SES Group's approach to providing great leadership. Throughout our history, our employees have consistently demonstrated dedication to leadership and excellence to provide a sustainable future for not only themselves, but also our clients and most importantly, our shareholders. We thank you for this recognition of those efforts. Thank you.
Congratulations, Basil, Ed, and the SES Group. Our next award is the Emerging Leader Award. This award is given to an employee who embodies the skills, ethics, and integrity of BB&C leadership. BB&C is committed to hiring and promoting individuals who do the right thing even when no one is there and also when it is difficult. The success of a leader is dependent upon his or her ability to treat shareholders, employees, clients, and business partners fairly and equitably. Like the High Character Leadership Award, we received nominations for leaders across the BB&C family of companies. I want to acknowledge the following people who received nominations for this award: Adam Kelly, Amin Bouk-Onk, Brittany Benson, Kagan Williams, Candy Shelton, Casey Sipsoff, David Broyhill, David Queenine, Denise Shute, Ed Farrell, Everett Anderson, Icy Lee, Jeff Nelson, JT Wilhelm, Krista Byers, Lars Herman, Matt Albert, Nick Owens, RC Woodson, Renee Wardlaw, Romina Bentz, Suzanne Lohr, Tierna Fischler, Todd Jones, Scott Sievers, and Steve Donahue. Congratulations to all of our nominees and this year's awardee for BB&C's 2021 Emerging Leader Award, Angela Lowe. Since her start at Bristol as a temporary receptionist in 2003, Angela has demonstrated a curiosity about the work Bristol does and the impact it has on the communities where Bristol operates. Her positive energy and commitment to continuous learning helped her grow into her current role as Director of Company Development. You'll find Angela as an early volunteer for pilot programs and trainings, a testament to her optimism around new ideas and new ways to solve problems. Over the years, Angela's strong inner character and ability to develop and cultivate relationships have translated to her involvement in a diverse range of projects, including navigating small business administration regulations, exploring teaming relationships, and supporting the majority ownership transition of the Bristol companies to Chogyang in 2018. Colleagues frequently seek out her opinion and perspective on critical issues and decisions, which is a nod to her emotional intelligence and calm under pressure. Please join me in awarding and congratulating Angela Lowe with the 2021 Emerging Leader Award. And now Angela will share a few words.
Wow, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Ethan. I am so honored and humbled to be given this year's Emerging Leader Award. It's hard to believe that 18 and a half years ago, I filled in as a temporary receptionist and was offered the job, but the thought of driving across town was not appealing. And I told Bristol that I'd fill in until I found someone. The funny thing is, I live in Anchorage and a drive across town only takes 25 minutes, which is nothing compared to some people's commutes. But it was the people and the culture that changed my mind and made me realize I'd be passing up on a great opportunity if I did not accept the position. I am so grateful that I did. When Renee told me I was the recipient for the Emerging Leader Award, I was really in disbelief. Then I went into panic mode of what I was going to say, and could I get any more nervous? As I was thinking of what I was going to tell all of you today, one thought kept coming to mind, and that was being grateful for where I am today. A couple of years ago, I was talking with a coworker, and she told me how her hot water heater went out, and she'd been without hot water for 2 weeks while waiting for a part, and the challenge to keep house and kids clean. Hearing that made me realize if I take something as simple as having hot water for granted and how much I would miss it if it wasn't available, what else do I take for granted? After thinking I needed to thank my husband and my family for all their love and support, I started to think about my workplace. I am so proud to be an Alaska Native and the values instilled into me, such as respecting the land, respecting our elders, and respecting each other, for each person has a special gift. And sharing what you have. Giving makes you richer, and this includes knowledge. I tell you this because while I was thinking about what I might take for granted, I thought how thankful I am to work, not for just one Native corporation, but two, and this is how they do business. They are guided by a board of directors and an executive team with the same beliefs. I am fortunate to work in the same building as BB&C and Chogyang, and every time I pass Jason Machokin or Cameron Poindexter or the other executive team members, I always get a friendly hello and how are you doing? Our parent companies actually value their employees and their subsidiary employees. How many workers of billion-dollar corporations can say that? I get to learn from these leaders and others in the corporation, from Jason telling his personal story about bullying, to Romina's knowledge of the SBA programs, to the excellent leadership and compliance conferences put on by Renee and Tammy. I also thought, how often do I take for granted the great coworkers I get to interact with daily? That I have coworkers who are hard workers, polite, smart, nice, and care about the success of the company. I get to learn from Allison Cullen how important it is to have a solid strategic plan. From Beth Poisson, the importance of the right wording in contracts. The importance of safety from Rick Miles. And even learning the meaning of generosity from Suzanne Lovell when she shares her fish strips and a gouda with the office. I also thought, how often do I take for granted what a great leader I work for? Travis Woods is someone that has always cared about the success of Bristol, and he understands that our success translates to benefits for our shareholders. I'm honored that he has given me so many opportunities within Bristol. I am also so appreciative that he believes in people having a family life. Travis has taught me you can have fun and laugh at work while also conveying how important it is to be profitable for our shareholders. He truly leads by example with his values of teamwork, trust, and truth. I again thank BB&C for this great honor, and I also must thank the executive team members, the board members, my coworkers, and my leaders for all the lessons and guidance I have received from you. For you all have been my teachers and have helped me become a better person, friend, employee, coworker, and leader. For those that know me, you know I like to leave with a quote, and I want to give you all this thought by Walla Ayeni. Be thankful for what you have. Your life is someone else's fairy tale. Huyana.
Wow, Angela, that was a great speech. Thank you so much, and congratulations on your award. I've always enjoyed running into you up and down the staircase or in the parking lot or in our office, and always appreciated your smile and your positive attitude. So congratulations. Our final award is the Culture of Safety Award. This award is given to a subsidiary company group that exemplifies leadership and safety through a personal commitment to ensuring the health and safety of all employees. I am proud to share that we have received nominations from all 5 of our business lines for this award. That says a lot about the integration of a safety culture throughout our company. This year's awardee is, and I've got the envelope too, the CCI Alliance of Companies, led by Duncan Morrison. CCI Alliance takes safety seriously. Most of its business is in the construction industry, where its job sites present all kinds of hazards. On top of that, their construction workforce is constantly changing, with new workers coming to CCI with various backgrounds and safety practices. In order to ensure consistent safety standards in their challenging environment, CCI engages in several proactive measures to protect its employees. In addition to hiring qualified safety managers, conducting job site inspections for safety compliance, and continuously speaking about the importance of safety, CCI also conducts mock OSHA inspections and monitors inspection reports to identify and report on the types of hazards noted. In addition, CCI has created an incentive program called Project Zero for its employees. Project Zero awards individual employees with paid time off when they are recognized by their peers and supervisors for exceptional safety behavior. CCI has issued 9 Project Zero awards this year. CCI Alliance is most proud of its strong customer ratings. It consistently receives high marks on CPARs, noting the quality of their work and safety practices. This has led to CCI's 6th consecutive year without a single DART case. Wow. Please join me in awarding CCI Alliance with the 2021 Leadership and Compliance Conference Culture of Safety Award. Congratulations to Duncan Morrison, President and CEO of CCI Alliance, and the rest of his team. Duncan, would you like to share a few words with us?
Yes, I would, and thank you, Nancy, for the introduction. On behalf of the CCI Alliance of Companies and our 250 employees, I want to thank the BB&C executive team and the board of directors for this honor. We take safety seriously and appreciate the recognition that this award represents. As Nancy mentioned, most of CCI's business is in the construction industry, and our job sites present all kinds of hazards. On top of that, today, the construction workforce is constantly changing, so we are continuously hiring, training, and managing new workers who come to CCI with a variety of perhaps different practices or different training from different companies. And because we work with federal contracts, there are additional safety rules and regulations that apply to our projects. For these reasons, plus the most important, for our sincere care for the well-being of our fellow employees, we maintain a safety culture that strives for zero accidents. During the last 6 years, We have had only 2 recordable incidents and 0 DART. While not perfect, our safety metrics are very good for our industry and reflect CCI's commitment to safety at all levels of the organization. The importance of the safety is so much a part of our culture that, as Nancy said, at times our customers note our safety performance on our CPARs, or our customer performance assessment reports. And so to have our safety culture not only recognized by our customers, but now also recognized, our culture and our safety record recognized by BB&C as well, is an honor, and we thank you for it. That's all. Thank you, Nancy.
Congratulations to all the awardees. We appreciate everyone who proactively nominated their fellow BB&C BB&C company leaders for these prestigious awards. We have a dynamic team of employees, and I'm always proud to say I'm a BB&C leader. While this event is a team effort, I want to specifically acknowledge Renee Wardlaw and Tammy Babcock. They are vital members of the BB&C team and embody the essence of our corporate family. Thank you for your work on this event. It was well organized. We're only a few minutes over our allotted time, even though we had a slight technical delay this morning, but we can all understand given where we're at in the world today. As we close, I want to thank each of you for your continued support and participation in this event. Amongst Alaska Native corporations, BB&C stands out because of programs where we prioritize our values, corporate culture, philosophy, and principles. Have a safe and productive rest of the week. Enjoy the upcoming holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you in San Diego in November in 2022. Thank you, and again, congratulations to our awardees, and we appreciate your participation today.